Chapter 2365. 2365 Appearance of the Prime Body. 2365 Appearance of the Prime Body. Yan Baichen wielded the Ji-Du saber and struck perfected Fiend Songyan's face, creating a wound so deep that his bones could be seen as fresh blood dripped. However, the difference in cultivation realm between them was immense, and so was their strength. If not for the sharpness of the Ji-Du saber, Yan Baichen's slash would not have been able to hurt perfected Fiend Songyan, even if it affected his mind. A look of regret flashed through Yan Baichen's eyes. The Ji-Du saber was stuck in the bones on his cheek. Eventually, it could not break through perfected Fiend Songyan's consciousness and destroy his essence spirit. Even so, perfected Fiend Songyan broke out in cold sweat and retreated. He was a perfected fiend and his physique and bloodline were strong. Ordinary heaven-grade Dharmic treasures could not hurt his flesh at all. However, that saber could tear through his flesh. What was even more frightening was that even his essence spirit nearly fell into the saber intent released by that slash. If the person before him was also a perfected fiend, he would have been a dead man by now. What's going on? Perfected Fiend Xueqi frowned slightly. Naturally, he could not experience or understand what happened when Yan Baichen's saber intent enveloped perfected Fiend Songyan's body earlier on. Incredible saber. However, it's with the wrong master. Endless rage burst forth from perfected Fiend Songyan's eyes. His Dao fruit was filled with a powerful Dharmic Dao and a halo appeared behind his head. The menacing wound on his face healed at a visible speed. Although Yan Baichen slashed his face, the power of that slash was too weak and it was only a superficial wound for a perfected fiend expert. Perfected Fiend Songyan glared at Yan Baichen and said murderously, "Aunt, I'm going to burn you to ashes without a corpse left." The moment he said that, perfected Fiend Songyan suddenly opened his mouth and spat out an incomparably blinding flame. Condensed with the power of true essence, a heat wave surged towards Yan Baichen. This blue flame was the secret skill that made him famous. It was clear that he was truly enraged and filled with killing intent to release a killing technique like this blue flame against a grade 2 heaven immortal. The power of the blue flame was enough to burn the entire hull to ashes. After releasing secular world desires, Yan Baichen's essence spirit became extremely weak as well. Suddenly, Yan Baichen's vision blurred and a figure appeared, shielding him. Although Yan Baichen could only see his back, he recognized the intruder right away and could not help but feel delighted and invigorated. The intruder wore a purple robe and a cold silver mask, revealing only a pair of deep eyes with a restrained aura. When the flame swept over, the intruder merely raised his palm and grabbed it casually. Poof! The flame was crushed by the intruder's palm and turned into sparks that scattered on the ground before extinguishing. Perfected Fiend Songyan's pupils constricted as he hurriedly released his spirit consciousness to scan the intruder repeatedly. Xueqi frowned with a grim expression as well. Master. When Heavenly Wolf saw that person, he was shocked as well and revealed a look of disbelief. Was he seeing a ghost? His master was actually able to escape from the hands of his old master after 1,000 years. Furthermore, Heavenly Wolf realized that he could no longer read the martial Dao prime body. The Dharmic Dao cultivated by the martial Dao prime body was extremely different from the Dharmic Dao cultivated in the world. Unless one were to truly fight, it would be difficult for others to see through his strength. Could it be that Master has already deduced the next Dharmic formulation for the martial Dao? Heavenly Wolf was even more shocked when he thought of that possibility. When the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals saw the martial Dao prime body, their expressions changed and they revealed wary expressions. Who are you? Perfected Fiend Songyan asked in a deep voice. Perfected Fiend Xueqi said, "The two of us are here to hunt down a few ants under the orders of the Supreme Perfected Fiend. Please don't interfere without permission, sir." The two perfected fiends could not tell the strength of the martial Dao prime body and hence, they mentioned the Supreme Perfected Fiend first. The martial Dao prime body ignored the two of them and turned to look at Yan Baichen, Heavenly Wolf and the others. "Brother, you're not dead." A rare smile appeared on Yan Baichen's face. "Master!" Heavenly Wolf walked over as well and shouted. However, after the change in Avicii, Heavenly Wolf could not help but feel conflicted now that he was facing the martial Dao prime body once more. Firstly, Emperor Bo Sun was not dead. Secondly, the martial Dao prime body had already given him his freedom. To be precise, the two of them were not considered as master and servant right now. It's you guys. The gaze of the martial Dao prime body shifted and landed on Gu Tongyu and Xueqi in slight surprise. Greetings, senior. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi hurried forward and bowed. However, the two of them were puzzled when they heard the words of the martial Dao prime body. Gu Tongyu asked, Senior, you know us? Yes. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi exchanged glances, even more confused. The two of them recalled carefully but had no impression of the purple-robed cultivator with the silver mask. We'll talk about this in the future. The martial Dao prime body did not explain and asked, What's going on? Why are the two of you here? Heavenly Wolf recounted roughly what happened. The martial Dao prime body nodded and looked at Gu Tongyu and Xueqi. Don't worry, since you're cultivators of Zephyr Thunder Palace, feel free to stay in Tianhuang's sect. Pardon me for asking, Senior. However, what is your relationship with Tianhuang's sect? Gu Tongyu knew nothing about the martial Dao prime body, nor did he know how important the words of the martial Dao prime body were in Tianhuang's sect. The martial Dao prime body said, I'm the sect master of Tianhuang's sect. Thank you, Senior. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi were delighted and expressed their thanks hurriedly. Heavenly Wolf pointed at the two perfected fiends, Song Yan and Xiefeng, and said hatefully, Master, I told them that we could give up on taking in these people from Zephyr Thunder Palace. Even so, the two of them wanted to kill us all. So you're the sect master of Tianhuang's sect. Suddenly, perfected fiend Xiefeng laughed. Let me advise you to not interfere in this matter lest you get into trouble. Perfected fiend Song Yan said coldly as well. Zephyr Thunder Palace and the other lowlifes are people that the supreme perfected fiend wants to kill. Who in the fiend domain would dare to protect them? Who is the supreme perfected fiend? The martial Dao prime body asked. He truly did not know. Up till this point of his ascension to the fiend domain, the martial Dao prime body spent almost all his time cultivating and deducing the martial Dao. He was not concerned about anything in the fiend domain, and knew very little about many fiend cultivators. Ha! Perfected fiend Song Yan laughed instead with a mocking expression. Here I was, wondering what sort of a ruthless character you were. So you don't even know who the supreme perfected fiend, Yan Zue, is. Perfected fiend Xiefeng relaxed as well and chuckled. This is just a small sect at the borders of the fiend domain after all. You can't blame him for being ignorant since he's just a frog in the well. In fact, he might not even know about the perfected fiend ranking. The martial Dao prime body walked towards the two perfected fiends and said, I don't know much about the perfected fiend ranking, but I've seen the person ranked 10th. You've seen Sect Master Whitebones before? Perfected fiend Song Yan frowned and asked skeptically. He's already dead. The martial Dao prime body came before the two perfected fiends and stood still, saying indifferently, I'll send you guys to meet him right away. Upon hearing that, the two perfected fiends suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. Chapter 2366. 2366 Suppression. 2366 Suppression. You! Suddenly, perfected fiend Song Yan felt his heart skip a beat as though a calamity was about to descend. When the martial Dao prime body said that, his tone was calm. There was no threat or ferocity, as though he was stating a fact. However, the more that was the case, the more alarmed the two perfected fiends were. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the two of them felt a figure flash before them. The aura of death suddenly descended in a sinister and terrifying manner. This is bad. Perfected fiend Xiefeng was alarmed and channeled his secret skill right away. Turning into a breeze, he vanished from the spot. However, perfected fiend Song Yan was a step slower. Poof! A fist seemed to have appeared out of thin air and perfected fiend Song Yan's head exploded with blood splattering everywhere. For the martial Dao prime body, a distance of 10 feet was almost instantaneous. He did not have to use any divine powers, secret skills or even circulate his blood chi to reach that speed. It was purely a burst of his physique. Therefore, the heavenly tribulation did not sense it either. Even so, perfected fiend Song Yan did not have the chance to react at all. His head was ruptured by a single punch and his essence spirit was destroyed. The martial Dao prime body conveniently put away the Dao fruit of perfected Fiend Song Yen. In his storage bag, he had Sect Master White Bones, the 14 Bone Fiends, Madam Jade Bones, Old Man Skeleton and the others Dao fruits that could be refined when he was in seclusion. Of course, there were many such treasures in Avicii that were innumerable. These treasures were within Avicii and others could not take them away. Perfected Fiend Xiefeng dodged and turned back to see Perfected Fiend Song Yen killed by a single move from Su Zimo. He was scared out of his wits. Initially, he intended to observe and see how strong the sect master of Tianhuang's sect was before making further plans. But now, there was only a single thought in his mind. Escape. When he reappeared, he was already at the entrance of the hole. Suddenly, Perfected Fiend Xiefeng felt a tremendous power behind him. Immediately after, the martial Dao prime body arrived behind him. Pest. Perfected Fiend Xiefeng's expression changed starkly. Even his teleportation could not shake off the sect master of Tianhuang's sect. Typically, teleportation would not exceed 1,000 feet. For the martial Dao prime body, 1,000 feet made almost no difference at all. It was already too late for Perfected Fiend Xiefeng to escape. While he was in midair, he released all the power of his essence spirit. In his consciousness, the Dao fruit was filled with Dharmic Dao and a halo appeared behind his head. Perfected Fiend Xiefeng conjured hand seals with both hands and created a terrifying storm. Twisting his body, he struck towards the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, Perfected Fiend Xiefeng activated his essence spirit secret skill. At this moment of life and death, there was no room for him to hold back. Against the counterattack of Perfected Fiend Xiefeng, the martial Dao prime body did not dodge, avoid or change moves. It was still an extremely simple and direct punch. The essence spirit secret skill was the first to descend and ripples appeared on the Mara mask like water. Suddenly, a few strange faces appeared. Immediately after, everything returned to normal. The essence spirit secret skill was blocked by the Mara mask with ease. Bang! The storm released by Perfected Fiend Xiefeng was shattered by a single punch from the martial Dao prime body and dissipated into nothingness. The storm could not even defend against the martial Dao prime body for a moment. The fist of the martial Dao prime body landed on Perfected Fiend Xiefeng. Time seemed to have frozen for a moment. A tremendous power surged into Perfected Fiend Xiefeng's body instantly. His eyes widened in fear. Poof! The next moment, Perfected Fiend Xiefeng's body was turned into a blood mist by that tremendous power and his essence spirit was destroyed without a corpse left. A Dao fruit floated in midair. The martial Dao prime body tossed it into his storage bag casually. The hall was so silent that a pin drop could be heard. Heavenly Wolf, the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals, Gu Tongyu, Qiu Siluo and the others were dumbfounded in shock. 2 punches were all it took for 2 perfected fiends to die. From the moment the martial Dao prime body attacked till the end, it only took 2 to 3 breaths. It was a 1 versus 2 single-handed suppression. It was only at that moment that Heavenly Wolf was certain that the martial Dao prime body had definitely entered another realm of the martial Dao. Greetings, Sect Master. Congratulations on your return, Sect Master. You've attained greater mastery of your divine technique. Feeling guilty, the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals hurried forward and bowed one after another. Humph. Recalling the performance of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals earlier on, Heavenly Wolf's expression darkened as he said coldly, "Didn't the few of you want to follow them just now? You even wanted to give up Tianhuang's sect? Lord Heavenly Wolf, we were in the wrong earlier on and were foolish. Lord Heavenly Wolf, please forgive us." Sensing that the situation was bad, the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals knelt on the ground hurriedly and begged for mercy. This crime is unforgivable. Heavenly Wolf took a deep breath and circulated his secret skill, activating his spirit consciousness to activate the seals on the essence spirits of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals. The expressions of the 7 Fiend Generals changed starkly and their gazes gradually froze. Their life forces decreased rapidly before they fell to the ground and died on the spot. Heavenly Wolf was once the 7 Emotions Fiend King in his previous life and was decisive to kill. There was no way he could tolerate such a betrayal from his underlings. Master! Heavenly Wolf turned to look at the martial Dao prime body. Just as he was about to speak, The latter raised his hand gently and interrupted him. Heavenly Wolf, the relationship between us can no longer be considered as a master and servant. The martial Dao Prime Body said, I know that the main reason why you were willing to acknowledge me as your master back then was not because you submitted to my methods, but because you thought that Emperor Bo-Soon was already dead. Now that Emperor Bo-Soon has appeared and you've regained your freedom, go look for him. I won't stop you. Given the capabilities of the martial Dao Prime Body, it would naturally be easy for him to restrain Heavenly Wolf and set up a seal. However, Heavenly Wolf protected Yan Beichen all the way back here and even maintained Tianhuang's sect till now. In return, the martial Dao Prime Body gave him true freedom. Heavenly Wolf was silent. The martial Dao Prime Body was right. He no longer had a master-servant relationship with the martial Dao Prime Body. Right now, he was already free. Once he left this hall, the vast world would be out there. However, for some unknown reason, his heart suddenly felt hollow. There was no excitement or joy. Instead, there was reluctance and confusion. Although Emperor Bo soon appeared, he disappeared for another 1,000 years without a trace. Heavenly Wolf did not know where to look for Emperor Bo soon either. Even if he found Emperor Bo soon, so what? Suddenly, Heavenly Wolf felt disinterested and bored. He sighed gently and walked out of the hall. Just as he was about to step out of the hall, Heavenly Wolf suddenly paused, as though he had thought of something. He turned around and looked at the martial Dao Prime Body. Raising his brow slightly, he said, Although you were the one who established Tianhuang's sect, I grew and expanded it single-handedly. I've put in a lot of effort into it. Why should I leave? I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. Heavenly Wolf said proudly before turning back with his chest puffed. When he decided to stay, he felt relieved and an indescribable joy even jolted through the depths of his heart. Beneath the silver mask, the martial Dao Prime Body smirked and asked, Are you sure you're not leaving? Not leaving. Heavenly Wolf waved it off. I still have to stay here and watch Tianhuang's sect rise step by step before sweeping through the Fiend domain to become the overlord of the Fiend domain. As you wish. The martial Dao Prime Body said. Chapter 2367 2367 Return of the Fiend Generals 2367 Return of the Fiend Generals. However, the martial Dao Prime Body changed the topic. There's something you have to clarify. Although the martial Dao Prime Body did not say what it was explicitly, Heavenly Wolf knew what it was. Heavenly Wolf said in a deep voice, I can guarantee that I won't do anything that betrays my old master. Of course, I won't betray you either. In other words, Heavenly Wolf meant that he would still acknowledge the martial Dao Prime Body as his master. Heavenly Wolf continued, If you meet my old master one day, I'll choose not to help either side. All right. The martial Dao Prime Body nodded. Now that Emperor Bo soon was not dead, there was something he had to consider if he wanted to keep Heavenly Wolf by his side. If the two of them were to fight one day, who would Heavenly Wolf help? That was not an undue worry. It was clear that Emperor Bo soon wanted to kill him by sending him to Greater Avicii. If the martial Dao Prime Body retained Heavenly Wolf while the latter was still following Emperor Bo soon's orders, this would be a huge hidden ailment for the martial Dao Prime Body that could explode at any moment. Now that he had obtained the promise of Heavenly Wolf, the martial Dao Prime Body could feel relieved. The martial Dao Prime Body said, I won't restrict your freedom. You can leave this place at any time you want. Humph. Heavenly Wolf harumphed. Of course. If I'm unhappy, I'll leave without even telling you. At that time, even if you cry and want to ask me to stay, you won't have the chance. The martial Dao Prime Body ignored him and casually picked up perfected Fiend Xiefeng's storage bag. Wiping away the spirit consciousness imprint on it, he returned the storage bags of Heavenly Wolf, Gu Tongyu and the others. Heavenly Wolf looked at the corpse of the 7 emotions Fiend generals and sighed. Why? Are you regretting it? The martial Dao Prime Body asked. Heavenly Wolf pouted. Not really. They were just 7 traitors. It doesn't matter if they're killed. Pausing for a moment, he sighed again. Sigh. Initially, I thought that one day, the 7 emotions Fiend generals would be able to make a supreme reputation in the Fiend domain and be renowned through the heavenly world. Now, it seems like I won't get that chance. Why don't you take a look at the type of people you're taking in? You expect the 7 of them to kill their way out of the Fiend domain and become famous in the heavenly world? The martial Dao prime body sneered. Why? You're not convinced. After being mocked mercilessly by the martial Dao prime body, Heavenly Wolf's face flushed red. He straightened his neck and shouted, if you're capable, get me 7 people. Show me what sort of caliber are the people you take in. The 7 emotions Fiend generals. The martial Dao prime body murmured. Initially, he rarely bothered about Tian Huang's sect. But now that he had entered the true martial realm, the level of Tian Huang's sect rose as well, reaching the level of an Earth-grade sect. The increase in level meant that the area of territory occupied and the number of cultivators in the sect would increase as well. Heavenly Wolf alone could not manage this situation. If he wanted to enter seclusion often, he should indeed gather some Paragon experts under his lead to rule over Tian Huang's sect together. It was not a bad idea for these Paragons to be called the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals. 7 Emotions. The martial Dao prime body said, they naturally have to encompass the meanings and correspond to joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred and lust. Which of the 7 people you found corresponded to any of those emotions? Heavenly Wolf chuckled. That's easy for you to say. How can we find cultivators who correspond to the 7 emotions and are worthy of the title of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals? There's one right now. The martial Dao prime body looked at Yen Beichen and said, Brother Yen, the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals have a total of 7 titles. Hatred is the most suitable for you. Although Yen Beichen cultivated the Fiend Obsession Buddha Karmic Sutra, his foundation was the Hatred Sutra. Hatred was also the root of his obsession to cultivate. Yen Beichen's Dharmic Dao corresponded to hatred of the 7 emotions. All right. Naturally, Yen Beichen would not decline and agreed readily. Amazing! Heavenly Wolf's eyes lit up. Why didn't I think of such a suitable candidate before? Right now, Yen Beichen's cultivation realm did not seem high and he was only a grade 2 heaven immortal. However, his potential was way too great after receiving the inheritance of Emperor Bo Soon. Although Heavenly Wolf was 2 minor realms above Yen Beichen right now, he would definitely not be a match for Yen Beichen in a few years. Indeed, he's a suitable candidate. I've got nothing to say. Heavenly Wolf rolled his eyes and was still unwilling to admit defeat. However, you've only found 1. There's still 6 more. What's there to be cocky about? The martial Dao prime body said, my single selection is 100 times stronger than the 7 people you found. Heavenly Wolf could not refute. Yen Beichen obtained the inheritance of Emperor Bo Soon and wielded the Ji-Du saber. He was practically the 2nd Emperor Bo Soon. In comparison, the 7 people he found were indeed useless. The martial Dao prime body said, furthermore, the position of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals is no small matter. It's better to be selective than to have someone inferior. Right then, a young monk sped over from outside the hall, panting slightly. It was Ming Zhen. Sensing the change in Tian Huang's sect, the martial Dao prime body made a move first. Now that he had condensed the true martial Dao body, even without using divine powers or secret skills, there was no way Ming Zhen could catch up. It was only now that Ming Zhen finally arrived at the main hall of Tian Huang's sect. Ming Zhen. When Yen Beichen saw the young monk, he recognized the latter at a glance and greeted. Patron Yen. When Ming Zhen saw Yen Beichen, he could not help but smile in joy as well. They were all born in the same generation. Although they had not interacted much in the past, they had fought shoulder to shoulder for the human race. Now that they were reunited in a foreign region of the upper world, they felt extremely close. When the martial Dao prime body saw Ming Zhen walking over, his heart skipped a beat. There's now a second candidate for the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals. Him. Heavenly Wolf followed the gaze of the martial Dao prime body and looked at Ming Zhen. He's only a grade 1 heaven immortal? Heavenly Wolf revealed a doubtful expression and frowned. Didn't you just say we have to be selective? Let me tell you, since you chose Yen Beichen as the first candidate of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals, while it might be difficult to surpass his level, shouldn't the next 6 be comparable at least? How is this little monk qualified? We can't let him sit in the position of the 7 Emotions Fiend Generals just because he's an old friend of Tian Huang mainland, right? He's not qualified? The martial Dao prime body smiled. His future accomplishments won't be weaker than Brother Yen. Bullshit. Heavenly Wolf rolled his eyes in disbelief. How could any random little monk compare to Yen Beichen, who had received the inheritance of Emperor Bo Soon? Heavenly Wolf protested. That's not fair. I don't agree. The martial Dao prime body ignored Heavenly Wolf and merely murmured, there can't be anyone more suitable for the joy position of the seven emotion. When Heavenly Wolf saw that he could not change the decision of the martial Dao prime body, he rolled his eyes and hatched a plan. He was prepared to teach this little monk a lesson and take him down a notch. Heavenly Wolf strode to Ming Zhan's side and caught him off guard. Turning around, he glared into Ming Zhan's eyes and released the visual technique, Eye of Fear. Once targeted by the Eye of Fear, one's mind would reveal a slight opening and they would feel fear. Even if it was just a trace, fear would explode completely and they would not be able to defend against it, resulting in a mental breakdown. Chapter 2368. 2368 Help One Another. 2368 Help One Another. A demonic glint shone in Heavenly Wolf's eyes and his pupils constricted continuously as an indescribable fear surged forth. Little monk, are you afraid? The voice of Heavenly Wolf sounded faintly and reverberated through the hall in a sinister manner. Ming Zhan turned to look at Heavenly Wolf with clear and innocent eyes. Those eyes seemed to be the cleanest thing in the world, possessing a mysterious noble might and supreme benevolence that could cleanse one's heart of all sins and ugliness. When he met with those eyes, Heavenly Wolf actually felt ashamed. The Dharmic Dao of the Eye of Fear dissipated silently as well. Patron, what's wrong? Ming Zhan asked softly with a smile. Why do you feel fear? Why don't you tell me? Perhaps I can help you resolve it. Heavenly Wolf explained hurriedly. I don't have any ill intentions. I just want you to make a fool of yourself and back off. After saying that, Heavenly Wolf felt relieved and delighted. Heh! He. Heavenly Wolf opened his mouth and smiled foolishly at Ming Zhan. Under Ming Zhan's gaze, Heavenly Wolf fell into a strange state. For some reason, he was incomparably delighted, as though everything around him was so beautiful. Everything's great. Heavenly Wolf tilted his head slightly and clasped his hands together with a blissful and satisfied expression, smiling foolishly. At the side, Yen Beichen felt chills run down his spine. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi could not help but laugh as well. As bystanders, the two of them could naturally tell that although Heavenly Wolf's cultivation realm surpassed the young monk, the latter was proficient in Buddhism and was not affected at all. Instead, Heavenly Wolf was cleansed by the young monk's gaze and lost himself, falling into a hallucination. A few holes let out whimpers that were sorrowful as though they were crying. Heavenly Wolf shuddered and jolted awake. Heavenly Wolf's eyes widened as he gradually recalled his behavior earlier on. Instantly, his face flushed red and he wished that he could find a hole to hide in. Damn it, I've been utterly embarrassed. Heavenly Wolf cursed internally in frustration. Patron! Ming Zhan called out softly. Don't come over. Don't look at me. Heavenly Wolf was so scared that he shuddered and his gigantic wolf head appeared. He turned around hurriedly and ran behind the martial Dao prime body in a few steps to hide. Actually, Ming Zhan did not take the initiative to attack Heavenly Wolf. It was only because Heavenly Wolf had evil intentions that he suffered a backlash from Ming Zhan's Dharmic Dao. Ming Zhan possessed the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and obtained Emperor Ananda's inheritance from Avicii. Even in his previous life, Heavenly Wolf might not be able to bewitch Ming Zhan if they had the same cultivation realm. In Sanskrit, Ananda meant joy and celebration and corresponded to joy of the seven emotions. The martial Dao prime body told Ming Zhan about the seven emotions Fiend generals and requested the latter to take over the position of joy. Ming Zhan did not decline and agreed readily. Sect Master of Tian Huang's sect, thank you for taking in the cultivators of Zephyr Thunder Palace. We still have important matters to attend to, so we won't linger in Tian Huang's sect. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi went forward to bid farewell. Are the two of you going back to Zephyr Thunder Palace? The martial Dao prime body asked. Gu Tongyu nodded. If we don't die this time round, The two of us will return for a visit to thank you, Sect Master. Although he said that, Gu Tongyu knew in his heart that the two of them would definitely die if they returned to Zephyr Thunder Palace. Let's go. I'll follow you guys. The martial Dao Prime Body said casually. Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo's eyes lit up with joy. Qiu Siluo could not believe it and asked, "Are you intending to head to Zephyr Thunder Palace to help us, Sect Master?" The two of them were already satisfied that Tianhuang's sect was willing to take in cultivators from Zephyr Thunder Palace. They did not expect the sect master of Tianhuang's sect to help at all. Yan Beichen said, "Don't worry, since the Thunder Emperor is in trouble. Even if we're millions of kilometers apart and there's endless danger, we won't stand by idly." Back in Tianhuang mainland, it was because of the human emperor, Thunder Emperor and the other ancient emperors that the human race was able to break free from slavery and truly stand tall, welcoming a prosperous era. For Su Zimo, Yan Beichen, and Ming Zhan, they had always felt a sense of respect and gratitude towards the human emperor, Thunder Emperor and the others. Furthermore, for those from Tianhuang mainland, when they ascended to the upper world, the environment was cruel and it was not easy for them to cultivate. As such, they naturally had to help one another. "Count me in if the Thunder Emperor is in trouble." Ming Zhan stood out as well. Gu Tongyu clenched his fist slightly and asked emotionally, "Sect Master, I wonder how many people you can gather within a day." "Just the three of us will do," the martial Dao Prime Body said blandly. "Ha!" Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were stunned. The martial Dao Prime Body glanced sideways at Heavenly Wolf who was standing behind him. "Including him there's 4. Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo exchanged glances. The excitement from earlier on gradually faded and their moods dimmed. "Sect Master, I know that you are strong." Gu Tongyu hesitated for a moment. "However, you might not know what sort of a terrifying enemy Zephyr Thunder Palace is facing this time round." The martial Dao Prime Body said, "The Supreme Perfected Fiend, Yan Zue." The two of them mentioned it. "No, it's not just Yan Zue." Gu Tongyu felt that the martial Dao Prime Body did not seem to take the Supreme Perfected Fiend seriously. His heart sank and he had a bad feeling. In a fight between cultivators, the greatest taboo was to underestimate one's opponent. Furthermore, his opponent was the Supreme Perfected Fiend. He had witnessed with his own eyes the earth-shaking battle between the Palace Lord and the Supreme Perfected Fiend, Yan Zue. Without witnessing it personally, one would never be able to understand the terror of that power. Gu Tongyu reminded, "Sect Master, apart from Yan Zue, there are 3 other Perfected Fiends on the Perfected Fiend ranking. They are Fairy Purple River who is ranked 4th on the Perfected Fiend ranking, Dragon Fiend, who's ranked 6th and the Fiend Saber, Li Patian, who is ranked 7th. "Oh." The martial Dao Prime Body replied casually. Gu Tongyu said the names of the 4 of them while observing the reaction of the martial Dao Prime Body. The martial Dao Prime Body wore a silver mask and his expression could not be seen. His eyes were like an ancient well without any emotions. Now that he saw the reaction of the martial Dao Prime Body, Gu Tongyu deduced that the sect master of Tianhuang's sect had most likely not heard of their notorious reputation. That was the truth as well. The martial Dao Prime Body had indeed not heard of them. Gu Tongyu thought for a moment and explained, "Sect Master, the 2 perfected fiends you killed earlier on could only be considered as weaker perfected fiends among the perfected One Realm. The perfected One Realm is divided into 4 levels: Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether and Paradise Void. The 2 people who died, Song Yen and Xiefeng, were at most perfected fiends of the Celestial Being realm. As for the 4 people on the perfected fiend ranking, they were all at the 4th level of the perfected One Realm, peak experts of the Paradise Void realm." "Yes." The martial Dao Prime Body nodded and paused for a moment. "There's no difference to me." When Gu Tongyu saw the martial Dao Prime Body nod, he thought that the other party understood what he meant. However, both he and Qiu Siluo were shocked when they heard his second statement. The two of them looked at the martial Dao Prime Body with dumbfounded expressions. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen anyone so arrogant. Furthermore, the sect master of Tianhuang's sect said it casually as though he was speaking the truth. If they had not witnessed the terrifying methods of the Supreme Perfected Fiend personally, they might have believed his words. Chapter 2369 2369 Million Fiend Army. 2369 million Fiend army. Xueqi frowned slightly and pondered for a moment before asking. Sect Master, may I ask, your cultivation realm is? The two of them could not tell the cultivation of the martial Dao prime body. If the other party was a Fiend king of the Grotto Heaven realm, their worries would be completely unfounded. It should be the perfected one realm. The martial Dao prime body said, however, I haven't undergone tribulation transcendence yet. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi were stunned and dumbfounded. There was too much information contained in that statement, and the two of them could not recover for a moment. Under normal circumstances, cultivators who entered the perfected one realm and condensed Dao fruits would definitely attract the heavenly tribulation. However, what did this sect master of Tianhuang sect mean by saying that he had not undergone tribulation transcendence? Did it mean that he had some methods of deceiving the world and hide from the heavenly secrets? Furthermore, if one had not undergone tribulation transcendence, they could not be considered as having advanced to the perfected one realm. The process of tribulation transcendence was not only to defend against the heavenly tribulations, but also to make use of it to refine one's body, bloodline, baptize the Dharmic Dao and condense true essence. What did he mean by he had not undergone tribulation transcendence? Even if he underwent tribulation transcendence right now, the sect master of Tianhuang sect would only be at the convergence realm of the perfected one realm. How could he fight against the experts of the perfected fiend ranking? Xueqi looked a little awkward. However, she smiled politely and said, Sect Master, we might not have made things clear previously regarding Zephyr Thunder Palace's current situation. This time round, 18 Earth-grade sects joined forces and formed the 18 Fiend armies. Led by the Supreme Perfected Fiend, Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend and Lipatian, there are around 200,000 people. Excluding Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals, there are hundreds of perfected Fiend experts alone. Oh! The martial Dao prime body replied. Xueqi looked at him as she spoke. It was inappropriate for the martial Dao prime body to remain silent and hence, he replied casually. Xueqi continued, apart from the 18 Fiend armies, there are actually other sects and factions of various sizes involved, more than 100. There are already more than 1 million Fiend cultivators surrounding Zephyr Thunder Palace with the 18 Fiend armies and these sects and factions. Xueqi tried her best to describe the situation Zephyr Thunder Palace was facing this time round. However, the martial Dao prime body looked the same the entire time, as though he did not care. 1 million-strong Fiend army encircled Zephyr Thunder Palace under the orders of the Supreme Perfected Fiend. Who could defend against that? It was because of this that the Palace Lord asked the hundreds of thousands of Zephyr Thunder Palace cultivators to escape in different directions. But now, this sect master of Tianhuang sect wanted to only bring 4 people with him to Zephyr Thunder Palace. That was akin to striking a stone with an egg and they would just kill themselves. Let's go. The martial Dao prime body looked at Yan Beichen, Ming Zhan and Heavenly Wolf. Just the 4 of us. Ha! Gu Tongyu and Feng Zi felt powerless. Even after saying so much, they could not change the sect master's decision. The martial Dao prime body said, it'll be inconvenient if we bring too many people. Gu Tongyu and Xueqi did not understand what he meant and were puzzled. However, neither of them had the energy to think further. Every single word and action of the sect master of Tianhuang sect seemed unfathomable. Are we leaving now? Gu Tongyu was unsure and asked. The martial Dao prime body nodded. Xueqi could not help but remind, Sect Master, how about you undergo tribulation transcendence first? The martial Dao prime body said, there's no hurry. Xueqi. Gu Tongyu. Ever since then, the two of them decided to remain silent and did not persuade further. The few of them walked out of the hall. Heavenly Wolf seemed to have thought of something and came forward again. Licking his face he asked, Master, look at my endowment. What title of the 7 emotions Fiend Generals is befitting for me? Since Yan Beichen and Ming Zhan were among the 7 emotions Fiend Generals, there was no way they would listen to his orders. Since that was the case, he might as well join them. He could almost imagine that the 7 emotions Fiend Generals would definitely be able to make a supreme reputation in the Fiend domain in the future. He had to occupy a position in advance. The martial Dao prime body glanced at him. You're not qualified. Heavenly Wolf was about to curse when he recalled that he was facing the martial Dao prime body. He shut his mouth hurriedly and almost fainted. How am I not qualified? Heavenly Wolf was displeased and grumbled. Can you compare to them? The martial Dao prime body was referring to Yan Beichen and Ming Zhen. Heavenly Wolf had just suffered a loss at Ming Zhen's hands and had no chance of winning against Yan Beichen. Indeed, he could not compare to Yan Beichen and Ming Zhen. Right now, you're the sect master while I'm nothing. You've got to arrange a position for me. Heavenly Wolf continued. It's best if it's not a lowly status. It should be something that would allow me to head out with pride and make waves everywhere I go. The martial Dao prime body pondered for a moment. I'm still lacking a mount. Heavenly Wolf endured the urge to curse with a bitter expression. However, after leaving Tianhuang's sect, he still reverted to his true form and arrived beside the martial Dao prime body. Including Heavenly Wolf, the martial Dao prime body's group of 6 arrived at the teleportation formation of Tianhuang's sect before long and left for the heartland of the Fiend domain. With the Undying Tree as the center, the heartland of the Fiend domain extended outwards continuously, forming a vast territory. The Undying Tree was a sacred tree of the Fiend domain. Due to the Undying Tree, the territory of Heartland was filled with killing everywhere. Countless sects and factions fought here, causing endless bloodshed. Countless experts and living beings were buried in this territory. Because too many cultivators had died in this territory, the land was even dyed red with blood. No matter which corner of the Fiend domain one set off from, it meant that they had already entered the range of the Heartland once they saw the ground turn red. Zephyr Thunder Palace. For the past thousands of years, this sect that rose out of nowhere in the Fiend domain's Heartland had developed extremely quickly because the palace lord, Feng Cantian, was strong and almost invincible among his peers. However, the ideology of Zephyr Thunder Palace did not fit in with the sects around the Fiend domain. In Zephyr Thunder Palace, cultivators and living beings of the upper and lower worlds were treated equally. For most Fiend domain cultivators, this was practically heretical. Be it the 9 Firmament Immortal domain or the Fiend domain, they believed that the strong reigned supreme. In the Fiend domain, such a concept was even more extreme. Cultivators and living beings that ascended from the lower worlds were born to be enslaved and were inferior to others. They were innate lowlifes. Of course, there were also some people in the Fiend domain that leaned towards the ideologies of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were among them. However, as Zephyr Thunder Palace grew, it was inevitable that they would have intensifying conflicts with the surrounding sects and factions. Initially, the factions were wary of the Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace's strength and did not dare to attack rashly. Later on, when they found out that the Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace was from the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, the balance was broken instantly and the fiends of the Heartland attacked him. Supreme Perfected Fiend Yen Zue appeared and charged into Zephyr Thunder Palace alone to fight Feng Cantian. This battle had exceeded everyone's expectations. Both parties fought to a draw and Yen Zue returned fruitless. Thereafter, Yen Zue gathered forces and was responded by Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend and the Fiend Saber, Li Patian, one after another. They formed the 18 Fiend armies. Together with hundreds of sects and factions, the million-strong Fiend army was created to attack Zephyr Thunder Palace. Chapter 2370. 2370 He Won't Die. 2370 He Won't Die. The Heartland of the Fiend Domain. Zephyr Thunder Palace, this Earth-grade sect that had risen rapidly for thousands of years, was now in a precarious situation and was on the brink of collapse. For the Fiend Domain, this was nothing much. It was especially so in the blood-colored Heartland. Countless sects and factions like Zephyr Thunder Palace were destroyed in the sands of time and gradually forgotten by others. The territory once controlled by Zephyr Thunder Palace had already been occupied by the 18 Fiend armies. Right now, there was only one Zephyr Thunder Palace left. The hall was on the verge of collapse and was dilapidated. However, the million-strong Fiend army surrounded and attacked for an entire day but could not take it down. It was because there was a final figure standing in the hall. The Thunder Emperor, Feng Cantian. Around the hall were dense corpses that resembled blood-colored mountains. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Among the corpses, there were Earth Immortals, Heaven Immortals and even perfected Fiend experts. Feng Cantillon stood in the hall covered in injuries and blood. However, his body was upright like the startling evil spear beside him. The sun was setting in the west. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the dilapidated hall, the surrounding corpses and Feng Cantillon, forming a long blood-colored figure that looked lonely and tragic. The gradually setting sun seemed to be indicating that Zephyr Thunder Palace and Feng Cantillon's fates had come to an end. Drip, drip. The blood on Feng Cantillon's body flowed continuously and dripped into the hall with a faint sound. His battered body looked so wretched and weak. However, none of the million-strong Fiend army dared to advance recklessly. Even if there were hundreds of thousands of perfected Fiend experts, none of them dared to act rashly. Those who moved rashly had already fallen before Zephyr Thunder Palace, turning into cold corpses. Apart from Yen Zue, Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend and the Fiend Saber, Lipatian, none of the perfected Fiends could defend against Feng Cantillon's attacks. Right then, a commotion broke out in the million-strong Fiend army. The 4 perfected Fiends on the perfected Fiend ranking had appeared at the same time. Feng Cantillon, submit. My patience is limited. The person who spoke wore black robes and had a pale expression. His eyes were black and white, sinister and terrifying as a shuddering aura emanated from him. This was the supreme perfected Fiend, Yen Zue. Legend has it that Yen Zue obtained the inheritance of the Yama in hell. The moment he was born, he was accompanied by a phenomenon that was ghastly and filled with fiend shadows. When Yen Zue was born, he did not cry or make a fuss. Born with yin-yang eye, he could illuminate the world, subdue ghosts and possessed many strange Dharmic formulations. Feng Cantillon asked in disdain, because of someone like you. An unusually tall and burly man suddenly spoke in a deep voice. Feng Cantillon, do you really think that you can survive till now if the 4 of us attacked with our full strength? The man was around 40 feet tall and his neck was filled with golden scales. His voice was like thunder. It was the 6th on the perfected Fiend ranking, Dragon Fiend. You guys can attack with your full strength. Feng Cantillon said coldly, however, I'll definitely be able to drag one of you down with me before I die. The 4 of them were expressionless. Indeed, Feng Cantillon possessed that capability. They naturally had to pay a high price if they wanted to kill the supreme perfected immortal. Previously, the reason why the 4 of them did not dare to attack Feng Cantillon with their full strength and held back was because they were wary of his final struggle before his death. Feng Cantillon, if you were in your peak condition, you would indeed have the strength to counterattack. Lipatian carried a pitch-black saber and shook his head. However, your blood chi is extremely weak right now and you're severely injured. Your combat strength is less than 50% of when you were at your peak and you still want to kill us? Why don't you try? Feng Cantillon raised his brow slightly and killing intent burst forth from his eyes. The startling evil spear beside him seemed to have sensed its master's determination and buzzed and trembled. Hee hee. A peerlessly beautiful woman in purple chuckled. Boss Yen, don't even think about subduing him. This person is way too tough. It's better to just kill him. Let's hurry things up. I haven't eaten for many days and I'm starving. The purple-robed woman was Fairy Purple River, who was ranked 4th on the perfected Fiend ranking. Fairy Purple River was extremely beautiful and had smooth skin. Every single frown and smile of hers could stir one's heart. However, the million-strong Fiend army present looked at Fairy Purple River with an inexplicable fear. Feng Cantillon's gaze was like lightning. Although his body was battered, his might did not diminish as he shouted, "Old witch, you're inhumane and vicious. I'll kill you next." What did you call me? Fairy Purple River's gaze turned cold. Feng Cantillon said coldly, "Old witch, your face has long been filled with wrinkles and you're in your twilight years. You're merely relying on your evil secret skill to retain your youth by consuming placenta daily. Over the years, countless innocent women have died in your hands and countless children have been killed by you before they were even born. It won't be overboard even if I slice you into pieces." Placentas were located in the wombs of women. Although Fairy Purple River looked young and beautiful, she was already an old lady. Each day, she would seek a pregnant girl to murder. By removing the latter's placenta and consuming it, she could maintain her youth and condense her blood chi through a secret skill. As for fetuses, they would die before long without the protection of the placentas. Even if it was just a single meal a day, The number of young girls and fetuses that had died in the hands of Fairy Purple River for hundreds of thousands of years was extremely terrifying. Kill! Foam Cantillon glared at Fairy Purple River and pulled out the startling evil spear beside him. He took the initiative and stabbed through the void. Attack! Yen Zue shouted coldly. Splash! A gigantic blood-stained iron chain appeared in Yen Zue's hands. Black chi spread and tore through the air, coiling around the startling evil spear and trapping it. Dragon Fiend growled and channeled his bloodline. His body expanded to a height of 100 feet and he transformed into his half-dragon half-human form. Waving his dragon claws, he charged towards Foam Cantillon. Swoosh! Li Potion's slash seemed to tear the world apart. Fairy Purple River shrieked and pointed at Foam Cantillon. A smelly purple river surged with countless incomplete ghost infants floating within. Bang! 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 Foam Cantillon released divine powers and secret skills one after another and fought against the 4 perfected fiends head-on, letting out a deafening bang. Within the hall, a figure fell. Poof! Foam Cantillon spat out blood and his face was pale. He could only barely maintain his stance with the startling evil spear. His body was still stained with the filthy water of the Purple River, and his flesh was being corroded continuously. A few ghost infants hung on his body and bit his tendons and bones in huge mouthfuls. Hee hee! The fiend saber, Li Potion, was relieved and sneered. I was wondering what other tricks you had up your sleeves. So, you're already at the end of the road and can't withstand a single blow. Foam Canton, I'll give you one last chance. Yen Zue said in a deep voice, submit immediately and I'll spare your life. Ha 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 ha. Foam Cantillon was fearless and burst into laughter. Even if I have to die in battle, I won't bow down dishonorably. Back in the divine firmament immortal domain, he faced strong foes that were 100 times stronger than the supreme perfected fiend before him. However, he did not submit either. How could everything before him force him to back down? Yen Zue's gaze was cold as he no longer suppressed the killing intent in his heart and said slowly, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Right then, a voice sounded from the distant horizon. He won't die with me around today. Chapter 2371. 2371 Change. 2371 Change. When the voice sounded, it was still far away. By the time the final word was said, a few figures had already arrived and passed by the million-strong fiend army, heading towards Zephyr Thunder Palace. Who's there? A few perfected fiend experts stood out and shouted. Let them come. Yen Zue waved it off gently and looked at the intruders calmly. Among them, there was a man and a woman. They were originally from Zephyr Thunder Palace and had already escaped. Now they had returned. The remaining black-robed man and young monk were only low-level heaven immortals and were of no threat. Only the purple-robed man with a silver mask riding on the moon devouring heavenly wolf looked unfathomable, and his cultivation realm could not be determined. Why have you guys returned? Foam Cantillon looked at Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo and asked with a frown. Palace Lord, we found a few helpers too. Qiu Siluo glanced at the martial Dao prime body and the others. She felt guilty and her voice turned softer and softer. Including Heavenly Wolf, there were only 6 of them. However, the difference between them and the million-strong fiend army was way too great. Feng Cantian's gaze swept past the martial Dao prime body, Yen Beichen and Ming Zhen. He sighed internally. This was nonsense. Today, not only would he die, they would also lose their lives for nothing. Senior Thunder Emperor. Yen Beichen withdrew his Jidu saber and held it horizontally in front of his chest, saying in a deep voice, I'm Yen Beichen and I'm also from Tianhuang mainland. I'm here today to fight shoulder to shoulder with you. I'm Ming Zhen from Tianhuang mainland. I'm willing to fight alongside you. Thunder Emperor. Ming Zhen held a string of prayer beads in his left hand, and the fiend vanquishing staff left behind by Emperor Ananda in his right. He had a calm and fearless expression. So, you're from Tianhuang mainland as well. Foam Cantillon felt regret but emotional at the same time as he clenched his fists. Good. To think that I would be able to join forces with people from Tianhuang mainland in the upper world. I can die without regrets. Today, We'll give it our all and kill to our heart's content. Gu Tongyu pointed to the martial Dao prime body and said. Feng Cantion nodded. Since you were the one who established Tianhuang's sect, you must be someone from Tianhuang's sect as well. Senior Thunder Emperor, I'm Desolate Marshal. The martial Dao prime body said. Desolate Marshal. Feng Cantion frowned slightly, feeling that the name sounded familiar as though he had heard it somewhere before. However, the situation was critical and he did not have the mood to think too much about it. He won't die with me around today. Who was the one who said that? Yen Zue glared at the martial Dao prime body and asked slowly. Among the people who arrived later, this purple-robed cultivator was the only one he could not see through. If he was not wrong, this should be the person who said that. Yen Zue could not see through the martial Dao prime body, nor could Fairy Purple River and the other two. Therefore, they did not act rashly and were instead on guard. It was almost impossible for anyone to protect Feng Cantion given the current situation. Unless the intruder was a Fiend King. Under normal circumstances, experts of the Fiend King realm would not interfere in a fight between Earth-grade sections. However, Fairy Purple River and the others could not tell the depths of the martial Dao prime body and were unsure. I said it. The martial Dao prime body replied. Yen Zue smiled gently. There are already 4 experts on the perfected fiend ranking here. Hundreds of perfected fiend experts and a 1,000,000-strong fiend army. With such a formation, unless you're above the Grotto Heaven realm, there's no way you can defend against us. Pausing for a moment, he narrowed his eyes and asked, What's your cultivation realm? Fairy Purple River and the others listened intently as well. The martial Dao prime body raised his head slightly and looked at the skies. It was unknown what he was looking at, but he did not reply, as though his mind was elsewhere. Yen Zue sneered internally and already had a judgment. He said slowly, Your secret skill to hide your cultivation realm is indeed brilliant. However, if I'm not wrong, your cultivation should be at the perfected 1 realm. The martial Dao prime body remained silent, as though he could not be bothered with Yen Zue. Why do you say that? Dragon Fiend asked darkly. Yen Zue replied confidently, First, I don't recall any Fiend Kings in the Fiend domain wearing such silver mask. Second, Fiend Kings won't interfere in fights between Earth-grade sects casually. Third, Feng Cantion is from the Divine Firmament Immortal domain and has only stayed here for a few thousand years. It's difficult for him to establish a relationship with the Fiend Kings of the Fiend domain. Fourth, since this person is also from Tianhuang mainland and even addressed Feng Cantion as senior, it means that he's a junior of Feng Cantion. Even Feng Cantion has yet to advance to the Grotto Heaven realm. It's difficult for this person to do so as well. Fairy Purple River and the others nodded in agreement as their eyes lit up. Yen Zue pointed at Heavenly Wolf and continued, Fifth and most importantly, the purple-robed man's mount is only a grade 4 Heaven Immortal. If that person is a Fiend King, the cultivation realm of his mount can't be so low. Dragon Fiend nodded. That's right. Exactly. The Fiend Saber, Li Patian, praised as well. Brother Yen, impressive. Truly impressive. When Gu Tongyu saw that the cultivation of the martial Dao prime body could no longer be hidden, he said to Feng Cantion hurriedly, Palace Lord among us, only the sect master of Tianhuang's sect is considered as an expert of the perfected 1 rel. He's not weak and once killed 2 perfected fiend experts, Song Yan and Xiefeng, to save us. Oh! Yen Zue raised his brow slightly and mocked. So, you managed to kill Song Yan and Xiefeng. Impressive. Feng Cantion arrived beside the martial Dao prime body and said in a deep voice, Brother Desolate Marshal, I'll hold off Yen Zue, Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend and Li Patian. I'll leave the remaining perfected fiends to you. In truth, any one of the 4 perfected fiends was more terrifying than the remaining hundreds of perfected fiends combined. Feng Cantion was worried that the sect master of Tianhuang's sect would not be able to defend against the experts on the perfected fiend ranking. That was the reason why he made such an arrangement. Of course, he could not defend against it either. A decision as such would merely delay things for a moment. There's no need for all that trouble. The martial Dao prime body shook his head gently and his glabella shone, summoning the Hell Suppression tripod. With a single thought from the martial Dao prime body, the Hell Suppression tripod expanded continuously and hovered in midair. You guys can hide beneath this tripod. The martial Dao prime body pointed at the hell suppression tripod in midair and said. Ha! What do you mean? Feng Cantian, Gu Tongyu and the others were confused. Even Yan Zue and the others were a little stunned, not knowing what nonsense the sect master of Tianhuang's sect was talking about. In a flash, the martial Dao prime body floated down from Heavenly Wolf and pointed to the firmaments, saying indifferently, "The world is about to change." The moment he said that, everyone felt a huge shadow envelop them. In the blink of an eye, a violent gust of wind blew and the world turned dark. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of thunder approached from afar, as though countless chariots were galloping over from the firmaments in a shocking manner. Everyone raised their heads. Dark clouds filled the firmaments, pitch black as ink. One after another, the thick clouds rumbled and surged continuously, emitting a tremendous might that enveloped the million-strong Fiend army. Chapter 2372. 2372 Thunder Ocean. 2372 Thunder Ocean. The Perfected One Heavenly Tribulation. The expressions of Yan Zue and the others changed starkly as disbelief filled their faces. Even Feng Cantian, Gu Tongyu and the others were shocked. They had not expected the martial Dao prime body to attract a heavenly tribulation at this moment. Throughout history, the matter of tribulation transcendence was extremely dangerous and concerned one's life and death. One would either look for a secluded and deserted place or be guarded by experts of their sects or family clans, who would run into a crowd to undergo tribulation transcendence. This guy had an absolute death wish. The more cultivators gathered in the surroundings, the wider the radius of the heavenly tribulation and the might of the heavenly tribulation that was triggered would increase as well. Now that the million-strong Fiend army was present, the level of the perfected one heavenly tribulation that was triggered was unimaginable. Ha 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 ha. Dragon Fiend burst into laughter. So, you haven't undergone tribulation transcendence yet and can't even be considered as a perfected Fiend. Are you trying to kill us with the perfected one heavenly tribulation? We're all at the peak of the perfected one realm. The perfected one heavenly tribulation is of no threat to us. The Fiend Saber, Li Patian, chuckled as well. What are you laughing at? Yan Zue glared at the two of them coldly and grit his teeth. We can defend against the perfected one heavenly tribulation, but what about the million-strong Fiend army around us? The hearts of Dragon Fiend and the others skipped a beat as they finally realized the terrifying consequences of this matter. Tribulation clouds filled the firmaments and extended for thousands of kilometers boundlessly, clearly enveloping the million-strong Fiend army. Although the might of the million-strong Fiend army was great, they were formed by Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals. Even Grade 9 Heaven Immortals could not defend against the perfected one heavenly tribulation. The million-strong Fiend army realized that a calamity was approaching as well. All the Fiends looked at the firmaments and felt the terrifying might of the tribulation clouds. They were uneasy and bewildered. What are you waiting for? Hurry and escape! Dragon Fiend roared. The million-strong Fiend army dispersed and sprinted outside. Every cultivator released all their movement techniques and divine powers, wanting to leave this place quickly. But, even teleportation could only cover 1,000 feet. Hurry and go! Heavenly Wolf was the first to react as he urged Yan Beichen, Ming Zhan and the others to run to the hell suppression tripod. Their cultivation realms had not reached the perfected one realm and they could not withstand the impact of the perfected one heavenly tribulation. Yan Beichen and the others realized that this was no small matter as well and did not dare to be careless. They arrived beneath the hell suppression tripod one after another. It was only at this moment that Gu Tongyu and Xueqi understood why some of the things the martial Dao prime body said previously sounded like nonsense. Xueqi was speechless. No wonder why Sect Master Desolate Martial said that it would be inconvenient to bring more people. Under the control of the martial Dao prime body and the hell suppression tripod. Although the tripod body had grown slightly, the radius it could cover was not large and 10 people were not a problem. If he brought too many people, they would become burdens instead. The perfected one heavenly tribulation did not have its own consciousness, let alone know which side the cultivators were on. When the heavenly tribulation descended, it was an indiscriminate attack that no one could dodge. I wonder if this tripod can defend against the perfected one heavenly tribulation. Gu Tongyu looked at the hell suppression tripod above his head and murmured softly. Heavenly Wolf rolled his eyes and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, if this thing can't defend against it, there's probably no other weapon in the world that can. The tribulation clouds in the firmaments intensified and began to spin continuously, forming a gigantic tribulation cloud vortex with red lightning faintly visible within. Crack! Finally, the first heavenly tribulation arrived. The location of the martial Dao prime body was right in the middle of the vortex of the tribulation clouds. The scale of the heavenly tribulation was also the most terrifying. A scarlet thunderbolt as thick as an adult's arm descended vertically and smashed onto the head of the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body stood motionlessly and did not even raise his hand. Just like that, he endured the first heavenly tribulation. At the same time, dense scarlet thunderbolts descended from the tribulation clouds in the millions like a storm. It was practically a blizzard of lightning. What happened was way too shocking. Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Heavenly Wolf, Gu Tongyu and the others widened their eyes in shock. In their vision, the territory before them had already turned into a sea of blood-red lightning. The million-strong Fiend army had fallen into it and no one was spared. The might of the million-strong Fiend army was so massive that it was difficult to defend against. However, in the face of the heavenly tribulation, they seemed so insignificant and vulnerable. For the earth immortals and heaven immortals, the power of the perfected one heavenly tribulation was a devastating catastrophe. The scene before them was like thunder from the wrath of the heavens. Instantly, countless Fiend cultivators turned into ashes and died. Among the million-strong Fiend army, an extremely small number of top-tier heaven immortals relied on various trump cards, divine powers, secret skills, Dharmic treasures and talismans to barely survive the first heavenly tribulation. However, all the earth immortals were turned into ashes by the first heavenly tribulation and none of them were spared. Not a single trace of bloodline or bone was left, they were literally erased from the world. Most of the heaven immortals could not defend against it either and exploded into pieces, destroying their essence spirits. In the 5,000 kilometers of territory with Zephyr Thunder Palace as the center, corpses were strewn and blood flowed everywhere. It was like a living hell. The four perfected fiends, Yen Zue, Fairy Purple River, Dragon Fiend and Lipatian, were enraged as they surveyed their surroundings. There were almost no living beings in sight. It was too ruthless. Hundreds of perfected fiends were shocked and felt chills run down their spines. Although they were still alive, the 18 fiend armies and million fiends they brought were annihilated almost in the blink of an eye. This was an unimaginable blow to anyone present. Under the hell suppression tripod, Qiu Siluo took a deep breath and tried her best to compose herself. With a trembling voice she said, It's no wonder why Sect Master de Desolate Marshal was in no hurry to attempt tribulation transcendence. He actually did such a crazy thing. Heavenly Wolf said with lingering fear as well, this guy is a pervert and can do anything. Back when the Martial Dao Prime Body decided to head to Avicii for the sake of Yen Beichen, he realized this fact. Feng Cantillon was the supreme perfected immortal after all. Although he was severely injured, he did not hide under the hell suppression tripod. Although he had been through countless storms, he was also shocked when he saw what happened earlier on. Kill him! Yen Zue hollered and attacked. If he could kill the Martial Dao Prime Body as soon as possible, the heavenly tribulation would naturally end. Hundreds of perfected fiends released their power of blood qi without holding back. In their consciousnesses, their Dao fruits shone brightly and halos appeared behind their heads. Boom! 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 Hundreds of perfected fiends channeled their true essence and released divine powers and secret skills. Swoosh! 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 1,000 sentient Dharmic treasures tore through the air and formed an impenetrable trap that enveloped down. Splash! Yen Zue coiled the blood-stained chain in his hands towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. The chain buzzed and sharp spikes popped out one after another, shimmering coldly. Fairy Purple River summoned the purple mystic Een Mother-Child banner and it spread open, revealing countless ghost infants as well as the tragic and menacing faces of female ghosts. It was shuddering. Dragon Fiend growled and transformed into his half-dragon half-human form, charging towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. Swoosh! Lipatian gripped his saber with both hands and slashed in the direction of the Martial Dao Prime Body with a deep gaze. black chi surged with a torrential malevolent aura. The 4 experts on the perfected fiend ranking and hundreds of perfected fiends attacked at almost the same time, launching thunderous attacks at the martial Dao prime body. They wanted to kill him instantly. Chapter 2373. 2373 Collapse of the Attack. 2373 Collapse of the Attack. Watch out! Foam Cantillon hollered and waved his startling evil spear, prepared to burn his life for a final fight. Even at his peak, he could not defend against such an attack. Furthermore, the tribulation transcendence of the sect master of Tianhuang's sect was not over yet. Roar! Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body spoke and let out a roar filled with endless might. The roar seemed to contain the cries of millions of living beings, forming a visible ripple that spread in all directions. Sound Domain Secret Skill. Myriad Being Sound. After the martial Dao prime body condensed the true martial Dao body, his essence spirit and spirit body reached an even more terrifying height, and the power of the secret skill increased exponentially as well. The myriad being sound even overwhelmed the rumbling thunder of the heavenly tribulation. The 4 perfected fiend experts shuddered. Yen Zue, Dragon Fiend and Li Patian had strong physiques and bloodlines. Although they were slightly further away, they still felt that it was incomparably ear-piercing and had pained expressions. Fairy Purple River's physique and bloodline were weaker. Her body swayed and blood seeped out of her ears. If even the experts on the perfected fiend ranking suffered such a powerful blow, it was even worse for the hundreds of perfected fiends in the surroundings. At the front, dozens of perfected fiends closest to Su Zimo could not withstand the terrifying impact and exploded into pieces with blood spreading everywhere. There were also dozens of perfected fiend experts with dull gazes and stiff expressions. Their heads tilted and they fell from midair one after another. Their essence spirits were already shattered in their consciousnesses. Even with Feng Cantian's experience, he was shocked. Beneath the Hell Suppression tripod, Gu Tongyu and the others were in disbelief. More than 100 perfected fiend experts were roared to death by the sect master of Tianhuang's sect. The remaining perfected fiends suffered quite a blow as well. Some of the perfected fiends spat out blood while others had their flesh split open, bursting forth with blood mists in a tragic sight. A single sound domain secret skill is enough to repel hundreds of perfected fiends. Such methods, Qiu Siluo could not help but exclaim. Initially, they thought that the unprecedented battle between the Supreme Perfected Immortal and the Supreme Perfected Fiend was shocking enough and unforgettable. To think that the scene earlier on would have a huge impact on their mental states once more. Such methods had already surpassed their understanding and imagination. Up till now, the 2 of them had yet to realize that what they saw was only the tip of the iceberg for the martial Dao prime body. The moment the martial Dao prime body released the myriad being sound, the second strike of the first heavenly tribulation descended. There were less than 300 people in the million-strong fiend army, who managed to survive the first strikes of the heavenly tribulation. But now that the second strike of the heavenly tribulation had descended, the remaining fiend cultivators could not defend against it at all, and turned into ashes amidst hysterical cries. Many perfected fiend experts present watched helplessly. The second strike of the heavenly tribulation posed no threat to the martial Dao prime body, Yen Zue and the others. In fact, they did not even have to bother. Splash! Yen Zue was the first to snap out of his stupor. His gigantic chain was like an anaconda that arrived instantly and coiled a few times around the martial Dao prime body before tightening. The countless sharp spikes on the chain wanted to penetrate the flesh of the martial Dao prime body and lock him up. However, no matter how Yen Zue exerted strength, the spikes could not pierce the skin of the martial Dao prime body. In fact, the sound of metal grinding could be heard and was extremely ear-piercing. A mocking look flashed through the face of the martial Dao prime body beneath the silver mask. Fairy Purple River waved the mystic Een mother-child banner, and the many ghost infants and menacing female ghosts on it broke free one after another and charged towards the martial Dao prime body. However, the moment the ghost infants and menacing female ghosts arrived before the martial Dao prime body, they retreated one after another as though they were extremely shocked and did not dare to advance. No matter how Fairy Purple River channeled her secret skill, the ghost infants and female ghosts merely circled around the martial Dao prime body at most and did not dare to attack. In fact, They did not even dare to touch the corner of the clothes of the martial Dao Prime body. With the help of the Hell Suppression tripod, the martial Dao Prime body had already gained initial control of Avicii. Avicii suppressed desolate souls and malevolent ghosts. The malevolent ghosts in Avicii were much stronger than the ghost infants refined by Fairy Purple River's evil technique. Furthermore, the martial Dao Prime body had just returned from Greater Avicii and exuded a sinister aura. Coupled with the fact that he controlled hellfire, none of those ghost-type evil beings dared to approach him. Fairy Purple River was enraged and channeled it even more intensely. As for the many ghost infants and female ghosts, they still did not dare to advance. Instead, they turned back continuously and cried shrilly at Fairy Purple River. An evil Dharmic treasure like the Mystic Een Mother-Child banner would be extremely powerful if it was refined successfully. However, if one did not control it well, there was a risk of a backlash. Right now, Fairy Purple River was pushing them too far. The spirits of the Mystic Een Mother-Child banner did not dare to attack the martial Dao Prime body, and were already showing signs of resisting and betraying their master. Swoosh! A pitch-black and sharp saber slashed down with a suffocating aura of death. It was the Fiend's saber. There was only a single person on the perfected Fiend ranking who used a saber. Li Patian. Among the perfected Fiends of the Fiend domain, Li Patian was the only one who dared to use the title of the Fiend saber. All his Dharmic Dao was condensed in this Fiend saber. Right now, he saw the martial Dao Prime body's arms bound by Yen Zue's chain. This person would definitely die if that slash landed. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, cracks sounded from the body of the martial Dao Prime body. Immediately after, the martial Dao Prime body struggled with both arms and the thick chain that coiled around him shattered into a few pieces, scattering in midair. Pest! Yen Zue's pupils constricted slightly. Although his dragon-subduing chain was not a pure Yang spirit treasure, it was still a 7 Tribulation spirit treasure and was indestructible. To think that someone would be able to break it with his body. How strong was the burst power required? Even the Supreme Perfected Immortal could not do it if he was bare-handed. Piak! Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime body reached out and grabbed the incoming Fiend saber. Li Potion's expression changed starkly. His Fiend saber clearly struck the palm of the martial Dao Prime body, but it encountered immense resistance. It merely tore through the latter's flesh and left a blood scar on his palm. How was that possible? Even Yen Zue and the others were shocked, let alone Li Patian. The Fiend saber in Li Potion's hands was a 9 Tribulations pure Yang spirit treasure. But now, a full-powered slash merely left a superficial wound on the other party's palm that was almost negligible. What sort of physique was it to be able to withstand a pure Yang spirit treasure head-on? The gaze of the martial Dao Prime body intensified. Suddenly, he exerted strength and grabbed the blade with his palm, yanking. Li Patian could not defend against the power of the martial Dao Prime body at all. But he refused to let go of the Fiend saber either. He staggered and charged towards the latter. The martial Dao Prime body released his palm and clenched it into a fist, punching. Up till this point of his cultivation, Li Patian had faced countless strong foes and had even fought against the Supreme Perfected Fiend, Yen Zue, in the past. However, he had never seen such a terrifying and suffocating punch. Chapter 2374. 2374 Unstoppable. 2374 Unstoppable. That punch seemed to have sucked away all the heaven and earth essence chi in the surroundings. The space around Li Patian was suppressed to its limits. Although the punch was clearly aimed at him, he felt that he had nowhere to retreat and could only take it head-on. Li Patian did not have time to think and raised his saber horizontally in front of his chest. The moment he did that, the fist of the martial Dao Prime body descended and struck the Fiend's saber. Bang! There was a loud bang. Even though there was a pure Yang spirit treasure between them, Li Patian could still sense the terrifying power transmitted from the Fiend's saber. It was majestic and unstoppable. Poof! Li Patian shuddered and spat out blood wildly. His gaze dimmed and his life force decreased rapidly. The next moment, a series of crackling sounds came from his body and all his bones were shattered by that single punch from the martial Dao Prime body. Even his essence spirit died on the spot before it could escape. Li Patian fell backwards. When he landed on the ground, he was smashed into a meat sludge and no longer had a human form. Li Patian, who was ranked 7th on the perfected Fiend ranking, was killed by a single punch from the martial Dao prime body through his Fiend saber. The Fiends were in an uproar and were shocked. If even experts on the perfected Fiend ranking could not defend against a single punch from the sect master of Tianhuang's sect, who would dare to advance rashly? Even Yan Zue and Fairy Purple River looked wary and wanted to retreat, let alone the remaining perfected Fiends. At that moment, Dragon Fiend witnessed everything as well. However, he had already arrived before the martial Dao prime body and was extremely close. It was already too late for him to retreat. Kill! Dragon Fiend growled deeply and his clothes were torn, revealing his body that was filled with golden scales that shone with a cold glint. Clang! Clang! The hands of Dragon Fiend had already transformed completely into the claws of a divine dragon. His joints protruded and he was strong. His sharp dragon claws seemed like they could tear everything in the world apart. At the same time, Dragon Fiend's blood chi surged and a golden divine dragon appeared at the back, circling around him. The gigantic dragon head reared and looked down at the martial Dao prime body with a dignified gaze. But soon, the golden divine dragon seemed to have sensed an unusual aura from the martial Dao prime body, and a hint of fear flashed through the depths of its eyes. Bloodline phenomenon. Dragon Fiend released his full strength without holding back at all. The expression of the martial Dao prime body was unchanged. He did not dodge, avoid, or even use his blood chi. He continued punching with a simple style that was simple and direct without any fancy moves. Even without using any martial techniques, the true martial Dao body could release shocking divine power. Furthermore, the martial Dao prime body fused his Dao and Dharmic arts continuously to condense them into simplicity. He fused them into his fist techniques and every single move he made could release the supreme will of the martial Dao. Bang! The fist and claw collided with a dull sound of defeat. Before the sharp dragon claws of Dragon Fiend could grab down, he felt a piercing pain in his palm. Ow! Dragon Fiend cried out in pain. A terrifying power surged into his palm and extended to his arm. The golden dragon scales on his arm stood on end and fell off from the sudden tremendous power. If not for the protection of the dragon scales, his arm would have been ruptured by the single punch from the martial Dao prime body. Kill! Dragon Fiend roared and channeled the bloodline phenomenon behind him wildly, wanting the golden divine dragon to help him deal with the martial Dao prime body. However, for some unknown reason, he could not control his bloodline phenomenon this time round. The golden divine dragon let out a deep growl at the martial Dao prime body as well. However, its aura was weak and it was more like it was crying, not daring to advance. The martial Dao prime body had once fused the Dragon Phoenix true body into the martial Dao furnace and synthesized it with his flesh. He exuded the aura of a taboo Dragon Phoenix and the divine dragon phenomenon did not dare to offend him at all. How noisy! The martial Dao prime body hollered and a second punch smashed down. Bang! Dragon Fiend could only extend his dragon claws to defend. Splash! This time round, the bloodline phenomenon on Dragon Fiend dissipated instantly. His blood chi fluctuated from the shock as well and his organs shifted positions. His tendons and bones creaked as though they would fall apart the next moment. Before he could catch his breath, a third punch descended. That punch tore through the air with a shuddering aura of death. Dragon Fiend raised his arms and blocked in front of him. At the same time, he channeled his essence spirit wildly and released his essence spirit secret skill, charging towards the martial Dao prime body. He had already thrown caution to the wind after being forced to such an extent by the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body ignored the essence spirit secret skill of Dragon Fiend. Ripples appeared on the Mara mask and resolved the essence spirit secret skill with ease. The martial Dao prime body was not affected at all. The third punch arrived and burst forth. Poof! The massive body of Dragon Fiend that was 100 feet tall was shattered by a single punch. A pitch-black light escaped from the shattered body in time. It was Dragon Fiend's essence spirit. Dragon Fiend's spirit consciousness moved and he wanted to use blood rebirth. However, there was no reaction when he channeled that supreme divine power. His essence spirit turned back with a horrified expression. His body earlier on exploded into pieces and all the flesh that fell did not have any signs of life, completely shrouded by the aura of death. The third punch of the martial Dao prime body destroyed all the life in his body. Crack! A scarlet thunderbolt descended and struck his essence spirit. Dragon Fiend's essence spirit shuddered and gradually turned transparent as its life force deteriorated. With the protection of his body, the first strike of the heavenly tribulation naturally posed no threat to him. However, there was no way an essence spirit could go against the heavenly tribulation lightning. On the spot, its life force was destroyed and its soul dispersed. The martial Dao prime body attacked consecutively and killed 2 perfected fiends on the perfected fiend ranking in the blink of an eye in an unstoppable manner. At that moment, it was only the 4th strike of the first heavenly tribulation. The perfected 1 heavenly tribulation had at least 6 cycles of 9 strikes each. That would be known as the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation. With each cycle, the power would naturally increase as well. Let's retreat first. There's no hurry. Yen Zue sent a voice transmission. This person underwent tribulation transcendence in the million-strong fiend army, and the power of the heavenly tribulation has increased exponentially. Once the tribulation transcendence is over, even if he doesn't die, he will be severely injured. At that time, it'll be extremely easy for us to kill him. Fairy Purple River nodded to herself and replied, "That's right." The figures of the 2 perfected fiends retreated at an extremely fast speed as their spirit consciousnesses conversed. Now that the million-strong fiend army was reduced to ashes, the tribulation clouds above the head of the martial Dao prime body shrank rapidly and returned to normal. Given Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River's movement techniques, they left the range of the tribulation clouds before long. Trying to leave. The martial Dao prime body sneered, "It's not that easy." In a flash, he charged towards Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River and said coldly, "The 2 of you, stay and accompany me through the tribulation transcendence." Naturally, Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River would not stop in their tracks foolishly. At the same time, Yen Zue sent a voice transmission to the 300-odd perfected fiend experts on the other side. Wrap around and attack quickly. Kill the people beneath the bronze square tripod and snatch it over. Chapter 2375. 2375 True Martial Heavenly Tribulation. 2375 True Martial Heavenly Tribulation. On the one hand, the martial Dao prime body took out the hell suppression tripod to protect Yen Beichen and the others. On the other hand, it was also for the hell suppression tripod to undergo the baptism and refinement of the heavenly tribulation. After the hell suppression tripod was severely injured, its cultivation realm fell. Although the cracks on the tripod recovered after devouring a large number of spirit treasures, in reality, the hell suppression tripod had not recovered to become a true sentient Dharmic treasure. The tribulation transcendence this time round was the best opportunity for the hell suppression tripod to recover. The heavenly tribulation descended and the hell suppression tripod was bathed in lightning. The 4 sacred souls on the 4 walls that had initially fallen asleep after suffering immense losses due to the battle woke up once more and opened their eyes in extreme excitement. There was no way they could recover to their peak just by devouring spirit treasures. The current heavenly tribulation was the key for them to absorb energy and recover to their peak. The hell suppression tripod hovered in midair and absorbed the power of the descending heavenly tribulation completely. The auras of the 4 sacred souls rose as well. As for Yen Beichen and the others, they hid beneath the hell suppression tripod and were not damaged by the lightning at all. But now, the situation had suddenly changed. The martial Dao prime body chased after Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River while the remaining 300-odd perfected fiend experts changed their targets and charged towards Yen Beichen and the others. Die! The startling evil spear in Feng Cantian's hand slashed horizontally and raised, piercing the chest of a perfected fiend instantly. Before that person's essence spirit could escape, the power of thunder that burst forth from the startling evil spear destroyed his consciousness. That person's essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. However, Feng Cantian was severely injured and was at the end of his rope with not much combat strength left. Standing in midair alone, he could not split himself to defend against all the perfected fiend experts. Some perfected fiends circled around him and charged towards the hell suppression tripod. In the blink of an eye, dozens of perfected fiend experts arrived before the hell suppression tripod. Someone laughed sinisterly. Die, ants. Poof. The moment that person said that, his head was shattered by a single punch and he died on the spot. He could give up on Yan Zue and Fairy Purple River for the time being, but he could not allow Yan Beichen and the others to get hurt. After the martial Dao prime body descended, he lunged into the crowd and charged left and right. He was a killing weapon in human form. There was no perfected fiend that could stop the martial Dao prime body in his tracks. Be it divine powers, secret skills, Dharmic treasures or talismans, none of them could defend against a casual punch from the martial Dao prime body. As long as the martial Dao prime body attacked, a perfected fiend would definitely die. In just a few breaths, dozens of perfected fiend experts were killed by the martial Dao prime body near the Hell Suppression tripod and none of them escaped. The remaining perfected fiends who were still fighting Feng Cantillon dispersed in fear and hid far away, not daring to advance. At that moment, the first heavenly tribulation was almost over. Right from the beginning, the martial Dao prime body ignored the heavenly tribulation above his head and merely allowed the thunderbolts to strike his body. The true martial Dao body absorbed everything. It was the same for Feng Cantillon. The lightning that descended from the heavenly tribulation was extremely damaging to others. However, it was a great tonic for him. After the first heavenly tribulation ended, his injuries began to heal. The martial Dao prime body stood near the Hell Suppression tripod and looked at Yan Zue, Fairy Purple River and the others in the distance. He did not take the initiative to attack. Actually, given his capabilities, if he did not hold back at all, he might be able to kill all 4 experts on the perfected fiend ranking the moment they met. Comic Flames, Hellfire, Bloodline Phenomenon. If all of those trump cards were released, not many of the hundreds of perfected fiends present would be able to leave alive, including the supreme perfected fiend, Yan Zue. The reason why the martial Dao prime body did not release those methods was not because he wanted to hide. Actually, to him, the supreme perfected fiend and the others were not much of a threat. His true threat was the heavenly tribulation this time round. His Dharmic Dao was different from the cultivation of all living beings of the upper world. He created his own Dao and established the true martial realm to create the true martial Dao body. To be precise, the heavenly tribulation he welcomed was an unprecedented true martial heavenly tribulation. Nobody knew how terrifying the heavenly tribulation this time round would be. Furthermore, he was undergoing the tribulation transcendence in the million-strong fiend army, adding another uncertain factor to the tribulation transcendence this time round. The power of the heavenly tribulation originated from the unknown in the depths of the heavens. There was a high chance that it was from the major Kiliacosm. The martial Dao prime body did not dare to be careless against such unknowns. If he released many of his trump cards to deal with Yan Zue, Fairy Purple River and the others, he would not be able to defend against any changes that might happen next. With the martial Dao prime body standing guard around the Hell Suppression tripod, Yan Zue, Fairy Purple River and the other perfected fiends did not dare to advance rashly either. However, none of them were willing to leave just like that. Many people had the same thought. They were waiting for the martial Dao prime body's tribulation transcendence to end. Even if he could succeed in the tribulation transcendence, the sect master of Tianhuang's sect would definitely be extremely weak. That would be the best opportunity for them to attack. Before long, the second heavenly tribulation descended. Yellow lightning descended continuously and struck the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon heavily. Both of them were unmoved and bathed in lightning. The color of the heavenly tribulations would deepen increasingly. By the 9th heavenly tribulation, it would transform into a golden color and shine with a blinding golden light that could tear through the world with a terrifying might. Bang! Bang! Even so, the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon did not retreat. The martial Dao prime body attracted the heavenly tribulation into his body and strengthened the tribulation fire, tempering his body, bloodline, tendons, bones and organs and perfecting the true martial Dao body. As for Feng Cantillon, he made use of the power of thunder to repair his injuries. At the same time, he comprehended the Dao and Dharmic arts contained in the heavenly tribulation thunder. This heavenly tribulation was not only extremely important to the martial Dao prime body, it was also a huge opportunity for him. Feng Cantian's heart skipped a beat as a thought flashed through his mind. What if Desolate Marshal came here to attempt tribulation transcendence not only because he wanted to deal with a million-strong fiend army? Given his capabilities, Even without the power of the heavenly tribulation, which of the fiends present was his match? Given his combat strength, he was invincible and unstoppable. Desolate Marshal might have come here to undergo tribulation transcendence because he wanted to grant Fong Cantillon an opportunity. Fong Cantillon looked at the hell suppression tripod not far away. There was still a huge question in his heart that he could not resolve right away. Logically speaking, this ancient emperor weapon should be in the hands of the divine firmament immortal domains Su Zimo. How could it be in the hands of Desolate Marshal? Furthermore, he recalled something. The name Desolate Marshal seemed to have been mentioned by Su Zimo once in the 10 Absolute Hells. In fact, Fong Cantillon even wondered if Desolate Marshal was Su Zimo. However, on second thought, he quickly denied that speculation. Firstly, their methods, Dharmic Dao and aura. Everything was worlds apart. Secondly, when the two of them parted ways back then, Su Zimo had just entered the Earth Immortal realm. It was impossible for Su Zimo to cultivate to this realm or even be comparable to him after thousands of years. I hope that Desolate Marshal did not snatch the hell suppression tripod from Su Zimo's hands. Fong Cantillon thought to himself. Chapter 2376. 2376 Fight. 2376 Fight. The tribulation clouds were thick and the second heavenly tribulation had just ended when the color of the lightning changed. Crack! The third round of green lightning descended and tore through the world. It was even more powerful and shocking. The martial Dao prime body stood in midair motionlessly and bathed in lightning, making use of the baptism of the heavenly tribulation's lightning to temper his body. Although it seemed simple for the martial Dao prime body to undergo tribulation transcendence, Gu Tongyu and the others who were hiding beneath the hell suppression tripod knew how terrifying the heavenly tribulation was. One after another, thunderbolts struck the hell suppression tripod and let out a blinding light as electric arcs danced in midair. If not for the hell suppression tripod defending, they would have been blasted into pieces a long time ago. What's the background of this person? He's undergoing the perfected one heavenly tribulation without any Dharmic arts or divine powers. He's merely enduring everything with his body and bloodline? This person's physique is too strong and his burst power is ferocious. Even the Fiend's saber, Li Patian, was killed by a single punch. The remaining 200-odd perfected fiends hid outside the range of the heavenly tribulation. When they saw that, they discussed with wary expressions. Brother Yen, can you tell what is the Dharmic Dao and legacy of his bloodline and physique? Fairy Purple River asked with a frown. Yen Zue had a dark expression and remained silent. Fairy Purple River said, from what I know, only a few races like the dragon and god race that are born with supreme physiques and bloodlines will choose to undergo tribulation transcendence with their physical body. Humph. When Yen Zue heard that, he harumphed coldly. There's no hurry. Let's see how much longer he can last. Even for the dragon and god race, for the 5th and 6th heavenly tribulations, they have to summon their Dharmic treasure weapons and release many divine powers and secret skills to defend against it. I don't believe that this person can survive the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation with his body alone. Before long, the 3rd heavenly tribulation ended. Immediately after, blue lightning flashed in the tribulation clouds and gradually formed a blue sea of lightning above the heads of the martial Dao prime body and Fong Cantillon. Splash! The water poured down like a galactic river with a terrifying might and drowned the figures of the martial Dao prime body and Fong Cantillon instantly. After a while, when the sea of lightning faded, the figures of the martial Dao prime body and Fong Cantillon reappeared. Boom! 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 The 5th heavenly tribulation descended and purple thunderbolts descended from the skies with endless might, striking the martial Dao prime body continuously. Each time they descended, a deafening bang would echo. Throughout the entire process, the martial Dao prime body did not even move a single finger. Before long, the 5th heavenly tribulation was over and the 6th heavenly tribulation was ready to strike. The gray lightning contained an aura of death that seemed like it could kill all living beings. Boom! 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 Gray thunderbolts descended one after another and struck the martial Dao prime body. As the number of times stacked, the gray thunderbolts became thicker and more shocking. Initially, they were only as thick as adult arms. Later on, They were the size of divine pillars that were coiled with lightning as they smashed down continuously. The martial Dao prime body was still motionless. By the looks of it, the 6 of 9 heavenly tribulation is definitely not the end point. There will definitely be more heavenly tribulations condensing later on. Given this person's methods, I wonder how many heavenly tribulations he will attract in the end. Could it be the legendary 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation? The fiends were shocked when they heard the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Someone shouted softly, "Don't talk nonsense. Anyone who can attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation is someone with the potential of a great emperor. There hasn't been one in a million years." That's right. Even as the supreme perfected fiend, Yen Zue only attracted the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation back then. This person's combat strength seems to be superior to Yen Zue. Just as everyone was discussing, the 7th heavenly tribulation had already descended. The color of the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation turned darker. The previous heavenly tribulation was gray. As for the first strike of the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, it was black and incomparably violent, descending from the skies like a curved black spear. The black thunderbolt seemed to have sliced the world into two. This time round, the martial Dao prime body finally moved. He raised his head slightly and extended a finger, tapping towards the descending black thunderbolt. Boom! The black thunderbolt collided with the finger of the martial Dao prime body and exploded instantly in a deafening manner. The martial Dao prime body was unmoved and was not injured at all. When Yen Zue saw that, his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Even though it was already the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the sect master of Tianhuang sect did not use any Dharmic treasures or divine powers. He merely extended a finger and destroyed the heavenly tribulation. Back when he fought against the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he released many trump cards and was almost at the limits of his body. However, the tribulation transcendence seemed way too easy for this desolate marshal. Yen Zue felt an inexplicable sense of frustration. However, he composed himself before long. That was because he knew that the power of the perfected 1 heavenly tribulation would increase towards the end. Notwithstanding the difference between the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation and the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation, even the might of each strike of heavenly tribulation would increase exponentially when it descended. Boom, boom, boom. The martial Dao prime body stood in midair and raised his head slightly. Against the impact of the heavenly tribulation, he merely raised his hand casually as though he was chasing away mosquitoes. The powerful heavenly tribulations dissipated one after another, and were shattered by the martial Dao prime body casually without causing him any damage. A perfected fiend expert was unwilling to believe this scene and felt that something was amiss. He made up his mind and decided to test the waters. In a flash, the person approached the martial Dao prime body rapidly and entered the range of the tribulation clouds in the blink of an eye. Crack! A pitch-black thunderbolt descended and arrived instantly. How strong! It was only when he personally experienced the heavenly tribulation did he know how terrifying it was. The person's expression changed starkly. Thankfully, he was long prepared and summoned his spirit treasure hurriedly, injecting true essence above his head to defend. At the same time, the person circulated his divine powers and secret skills and attacked the heavenly tribulation. Boom! The pitch-black lightning descended and pierced the person's spirit treasure almost instantly, destroying his divine powers and secret skills. The perfected fiend shuddered and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was pierced by the pitch-black thunderbolt, revealing a shocking char hole of blood. Countless destructive power of thunder swept through his body and destroyed his life force in the blink of an eye. Thankfully, this person saw that the situation was bad and his essence spirit left his body with the Dao fruit wrapped around it. He escaped from the range of the tribulation clouds and escaped death, avoiding a calamity. Even so, it was difficult to make up for the losses that this person suffered. His body was completely destroyed by the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation and his life force was severed. He could not even use blood rebirth. In the eyes of the fiends, this scene made them even more wary. The fiends retreated once more and no one dared to advance rashly. Before long, the 7 of 9 heavenly tribulation ended but the tribulation clouds did not dissipate. The 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation was about to arrive. The martial Dao prime body took a deep breath and looked up at the firmaments. Instead of retreating, He advanced and soared into the skies against the descending heavenly tribulation. The martial Dao prime body wanted to face the heavenly tribulation head-on, not defend passively. Chapter 2377 2377-9 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation 2377-9 of 9 Heavenly Tribulation. The fiends were shocked as they looked at the martial Dao prime body who soared into the air to receive the heavenly tribulation. Challenging the heavenly tribulation head-on was akin to challenging the heavens, the unknown will at the origin of the heavenly tribulation and the laws of heaven and earth. This was the martial Dao. This was the will of the martial Dao. Unyielding, resisting, fighting against heaven and earth and exacting revenge and repaying gratitude as one pleased. The color of the 8th heavenly tribulation was no longer dark. At their limits, things reverse instead. The extreme of the black heavenly tribulation had already transformed into a milky white color after evolving. Boom! The martial Dao prime body soared into the skies and raised his fist, punching heavily against the descending milky white thunderbolt, causing the world to tremble. The figure of the martial Dao prime body shuddered slightly and paused as well. Since the beginning of the tribulation transcendence this time round, this was the first time the martial Dao prime body was affected. However, it was almost negligible. The figure of the martial Dao prime body continued to climb. The second strike of the heavenly tribulation descended extremely quickly, as though it could sense the provocation of the martial Dao prime body and wanted to shoot him down. The martial Dao prime body punched out once more to fight head-on. Boom! There was a loud bang. This time round, the figure of the martial Dao prime body was unaffected as he broke through the thunderbolt and charged up against the tides. As though it could sense the aura of the martial Dao prime body, the hell suppression tripod on the other side vibrated continuously as well. Sanskrit reverberated within the tripod while the roars of dragons, tigers, turtles and phoenixes could be heard outside. After absorbing the power of 7 heavenly tribulations, the auras of the 4 sacred souls had clearly broken through from the peak of the heaven immortal realm to the perfected one realm. The hell suppression tripod was sentient and charged into the firmaments against the electric arcs as well. At the same time, the hell suppression tripod shone with rays of light that formed a barrier around Yen Beichen and the others like a waterfall, continuing to protect them. Right in front of everyone, the man in tripod rose continuously against the will of the heavenly tribulation and the might of thunder. Boom! 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 By the time the 9th strike of the heavenly tribulation descended, the figure of the martial Dao prime body had already charged into the tribulation clouds and charged forward. He attacked consecutively and shattered the surrounding tribulation clouds. The fiends were dumbfounded in shock. Even the supreme perfected fiend, Yen Xueqi, and Fairy Purple River who was ranked 4th on the perfected fiend ranking were shocked. The tribulation transcendence method of this sect master of Tianhuang's sect had completely exceeded their imagination. He charged into the tribulation clouds alone and stirred the sea of lightning, almost overturning the entire firmament. He crushed the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation with his body alone. Amazing! Even Feng Cantillon could not help but praise. Back then, he was the supreme perfected immortal of the 9 firmament immortal domain. However, when he entered the perfected one realm, he only attracted the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation as well. The process of him crossing the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation was unusually dangerous. After it was over, he was only left with a single breath. Thankfully, he was protected by an expert and could recover slowly. However, the perfected fiend desolate marshal before him had a torrential aura. Against the heavenly tribulation, he counterattacked and dispersed the tribulation clouds, crushing the lightning. Even Feng Cantillon could not compare to such extraordinary methods. Yen Xueqi looked up at the firmaments in silence in deep thought. As for the fiends, they had frightened expressions and were already thinking of retreating. Brother Yen, let's retreat. Fairy Purple River frowned. This person's tribulation transcendence ended and he's not injured at all. Instead, his aura is even stronger. We can't defeat him even if we join forces. Yen Xueqi shook his head gently. The heavenly tribulation is not over yet. The expressions of Fairy Purple River and the others changed. The fact that things were not over after the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation meant that the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was about to descend. This was the epitome of the perfected one heavenly tribulation. For the past 1,000,000 years, at least in the heavenly world, there had never been anyone who attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. If there was truly the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, there was no need for the fiends to be in a hurry to leave. Firstly, the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was unprecedented. If they could witness it personally, it would be an opportunity for everyone present. Secondly, the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was an extreme heavenly tribulation that could destroy everything. Notwithstanding whether the sect master of Tianhuang's sect could survive. Even if he could survive, he would definitely be severely injured and fall into an extremely weak state. This was a good opportunity for them to attack. Anyone who could attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation definitely had the potential to become a great emperor. All of them felt an inexplicable sense of excitement at the thought that they could kill such a monster incarnate in advance. In the skies, the tribulation clouds that were dispersed by the martial Dao prime body gathered once more and turned thicker, emitting a shuddering might. Fu fu fu. Yen Zue could not help but laugh and say smugly, he truly planned everything. This person lured the heavenly tribulation to destroy my 1,000,000-strong fiend army. However, he did not expect that his actions would also land him in a dangerous situation with nowhere to retreat. If he is killed by the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, it would be fate. If he is lucky enough to survive the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, we'll attack and send him on his way. All right. The fiends were excited and agreed loudly. Feng Cantion had a grim expression as he wielded the startling evil spear and looked up at the firmaments. Even he had not seen the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation before and did not know how terrifying the legendary extreme heavenly tribulation would be. Boom! The first strike of the 9th heavenly tribulation descended. The martial Dao prime body received the attack with a clenched fist. Boom! A figure fell rapidly from the firmaments to the ground, creating a huge pit. The first strike of the heavenly tribulation was even more ferocious and terrifying than all the previous heavenly tribulations combined, smashing the martial Dao prime body down. The martial Dao prime body shrugged his arm gently. Up till this point of the tribulation transcendence, this was the first time he felt a numbing sensation on his fist and arm with a slight burning pain. Boom! The second strike of the heavenly tribulation followed closely behind. The martial Dao prime body took a deep breath and used his fists to receive the heavenly tribulation. Bang! The figure of the martial Dao prime body shrank and he was smashed into the ground by the power of the heavenly tribulation. He could already feel his chest turning stuffy as well as discomfort within his body. Before he could catch his breath, the third strike of the heavenly tribulation had already descended. This time round, the martial Dao prime body channeled his blood qi and his aura surged. He broke free from the ground and welcomed the attack once more. Boom! The martial Dao prime body was smashed down once more. However, his blood qi circled around him and he emitted an incomparably powerful life force. He was still completely unharmed. After the 3 strikes of the heavenly tribulation ended, the 4th strike of the heavenly tribulation did not descend for a long time. The tribulation clouds in the skies did not disperse either. Watch out, your bloodline! Right then, Feng Cantion's voice sounded. The martial Dao prime body's heart skipped a beat. Indeed. Unknowingly, a mysterious power had entered his bloodline and was destroying his life force continuously. The 4th strike of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was the bloodline tribulation. Unlike the heavenly tribulations earlier on, the power of this heavenly tribulation would appear silently in the body of someone undergoing tribulation transcendence. If the person undergoing tribulation transcendence was careless and did not notice it in time, his bloodline might dry up and it would be difficult for him to recover. Humph! The martial Dao prime body sneered and channeled his blood qi with all his might. The sound of raging tides crashing onto shore echoed endlessly from his body. His bloodline contained a scorching heat that was like lava. If it was channeled with all its might, it could smelt everything. The power of the heavenly tribulation did not exist for long in the body of the martial Dao prime body. Before long, it would be devoured and refined by the bloodline of the martial Dao prime body and washed clean. Chapter 2378. 2378 Peerless Divine Power. 2378 Peerless Divine Power. After the bloodline tribulation, 2 consecutive heavenly tribulations descended into the body of the martial Tao prime body silently without any form. Essence Spirit Tribulation. This type of heavenly tribulation could ignore the defense of the Mara mask completely and appear sinisterly in his consciousness. The martial Tao prime body reacted extremely quickly and channeled his Essence Spirit secret skill to defend. A moment later, the Essence Spirit Tribulation dissipated. After that was the Tao Heart Tribulation. This type of heavenly tribulation affected the cultivator's Tao heart. If one's Tao heart was weak, they would definitely develop mental demons under the effect of the heavenly tribulation. However, the Tao heart tribulation had no effect on the martial Tao prime body at all. He had once condensed the 10th stone step of the Tao heart stairs and his Tao heart was indestructible. Even the Tao heart tribulation of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation could not shake it. After the 3 silent and invisible heavenly tribulations ended, the tribulation clouds changed once more. Pausing for a moment, a spark suddenly fell from the middle of the tribulation clouds. Phew! When the spark landed on the martial Tao prime body, a raging fire ignited and spread continuously, forming a column of flames that connected heaven and earth with raging flames. The 7th strike of the heavenly tribulation, the karma tribulation. No matter who or what living being it was, they were tainted by karma the moment they were born. As time passed by and they grew, they would accumulate even more karma. There were both positive and negative karmas. As for the heavenly tribulation, it ignited all the karma on the martial Tao prime body and burned him continuously. The martial Tao prime body's column of flames that connected heaven and earth stood upright and unmoved, as though he could not feel any pain or torture. That was because the flames were nothing compared to the pain caused by the hellfire in Greater Avicii. Karmic flames were the only things in the world that could ignite karma. While the karmic flames burned the karma, they were also tempering his flesh. Right in front of everyone, the martial Tao prime body roared into the skies. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a bottomless abyss as he absorbed and devoured the karmic flames that connected heaven and earth continuously. Strange and tragic red lotus flowers surrounded the martial Tao prime body, revealing a demonic beauty. The martial Tao prime body stepped on the red lotus karmic fire and his body rose continuously. The 7th strike of the 9th heavenly tribulation shook the martial Tao prime body as well. The fiends were shocked and their hearts skipped a beat. Even Feng Cantion at the side suffered a huge blow from the karma tribulation. He was almost burned into charcoal and looked wretched. His skin cracked and his bloodline flowed, forming red lotus flowers on the ground. After the 7th strike ended, the 8th strike descended. Clang! Clang! Shoo! 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 Different divine weapons descended from the thick tribulation clouds and charged towards the martial Tao prime body, Feng Cantion and the hell suppression tripod. Weapon tribulation. There were all sorts of divine weapons, Dharmic treasures, sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, forks. There were also gigantic tripods, ancient bells, bronze furnaces and strange weapons such as horsetail whips, treasure mirrors and long darts. When these weapons appeared with the power of the heavenly tribulation, there might had already reached the level of 9 tribulations pure yang spirit treasures. They rained down densely and blanketed the skies. Haha, good timing. Feng Cantion burst into laughter and waved his startling evil spear, soaring into the skies in a heroic manner. The simplest way to survive the weapon tribulation was naturally to use divine weapons and Dharmic treasures to fight like Feng Cantion. However, at that moment, the hell suppression tripod was still guarding above Yanbeichen and the others and could not leave. Against the pure yang spirit treasures that blanketed the skies, the martial Tao prime body did not dodge or avoid and charged forward. Boom! 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 The martial Tao prime body waved his fists and attacked continuously. With his body, he fought head-on against the descending pure yang spirit treasures and let out a deafening bang. The fiends winced at the sight of that. Although the pure yang spirit treasures were incorporeal, they were transformed from the power of the heavenly tribulation. Yet, this person could take them head-on with his body. Of course, after the consecutive clashes, the fists of the martial Tao prime body were stained with blood and wounds appeared on his body. However, those injuries were almost negligible for the true martial Tao body. He could recover instantly. Finally, the divine weapons in the skies gradually thinned and dissipated. The weapon tribulation was over. Of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, there was only the final heavenly tribulation left. Far away, Fairy Purple River shook her head with a grim expression. Brother Yen, let's retreat. From the looks of it, even the final heavenly tribulation won't be able to severely injure him. No. Yen Zue had a calm expression. It's not so easy to defend against the final heavenly tribulation. Even if he can survive it, he'll lose half his life. Brother Yen, are you that confident? Fairy Purple River asked with a frown. Yen Zue did not reply and asked instead, do you know what's the final tribulation of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation? Fairy Purple River said, I don't know. Brother Yen, please enlighten me. The final one is the divine power tribulation. Yen Zue said indifferently. Fairy Purple River still could not understand. Up till now, this person has not used any divine powers or secret skills. Even the divine power tribulation will most likely return fruitless. Foo-foo. Yen Zue smiled and asked again, do you know how the first peerless divine power of the Trichiliocosm was spread? I'm not sure. Fairy Purple River shook her head and probed. Someone with extraordinary talent created it and passed it down. Impossible. Yen Zue said, peerless divine powers touch on the core profoundness of Dharmic Daos. It's almost impossible to comprehend a peerless divine power, let alone create one personally. That was not an exaggeration. Yen Zue was known as the Supreme Perfected Fiend and had the chance to come into contact with a peerless divine power. However, he could not comprehend it at all. Impossible to create personally? Fairy Purple River's heart skipped a beat as she understood what Yen Zue was implying. You mean to say that the final tribulation of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation is a peerless divine power? That's right. Yen Zue nodded and said, peerless divine powers are extremely rare. The peerless divine powers that have been passed down till now were all passed down by the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Fairy Purple River was not the only one. Even the fiends were shocked when they heard that. Peerless divine powers were the epitome of divine powers. It was no exaggeration to say that if a perfected immortal could comprehend a peerless divine power, he could be invincible in the perfected one realm and obtain the title of a supreme perfected immortal. In fact, he could advance a step further and become the #1 perfected immortal of the heavenly world. Yen Zue said, that's why we have to watch him tied through this final tribulation here no matter what. Not everyone has the chance to witness a peerless divine power. This is also a huge opportunity for us. How much you can comprehend from the descent of this peerless divine power will depend on your own potential. Fairy Purple River asked, which peerless divine power will descend this time round? I'm not sure about that. Yen Zue shook his head gently. There aren't many peerless divine powers throughout history. The ones I know are eternal night, astral imprisonment, 6 paths of reincarnation and so on. It's possible for any of those to descend. Or perhaps, it might be a peerless divine power that has never appeared before. Chapter 2379. 2379 Eternal Damnation. 2379 Eternal Damnation. After the 8th strike of the heavenly tribulation ended, the 9th strike did not appear for a long time. The tribulation clouds in the firmaments had yet to disperse, as though they were accumulating their final strength and could explode at any moment. Fellow Daoist, a peerless divine power should descend in this final tribulation. You must not be careless. Feng Cantillon reminded, don't forget to comprehend the obscurities within while resisting. Once that peerless divine power descended, the martial Dao prime body and Feng Cantillon would naturally comprehend more than the surrounding people. Peerless divine power. The eyes of the martial Dao prime body lit up. Relying on the true martial Dao body, he rarely used divine powers or secret skills in combat. As long as he charged forward, no one would be able to stop him. Even after obtaining many divine powers and secret skills, the martial Dao prime body rarely cultivated them and merely fused them into the martial Dao furnace to obtain their essences. However, it was different for peerless divine powers. If he could comprehend a peerless divine power, his combat strength would increase immensely. The might of the tribulation clouds intensified. Finally, The power in the tribulation clouds had already accumulated to its peak and burst forth. The lightning descended and formed a tsunami that surged over. There were also many different powers of the heavenly tribulation mixed in the lightning tide. Some of them were flames, some of them were howling cyclones, and some of them were divine weapons. There were also many heavenly tribulations that transformed into various runes that descended densely. There were 81 strikes in the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. There was the formation tribulation, residency tribulation, destruction tribulation, and emptiness tribulation, where 20 minor tribulations were contained in each of them. There was the fire tribulation, water tribulation, wind tribulation, weapon tribulation. There was the incremental tribulation, reduction tribulation, flora tribulation, sand tribulation, mustard seed tribulation, dust tribulation, stone tribulation. There was the ethereal tribulation, awakening tribulation, consolidation tribulation, mystic tribulation, virtuous tribulation, astral tribulation. In the vision of the martial Tao prime body, thousands of heavenly tribulations surged over. Every single heavenly tribulation was different. The power contained in every single heavenly tribulation was incomparably terrifying. Most of the runes conjured by the heavenly tribulation were foreign to the martial Tao prime body, and he had never even heard of them before. Peerless divine power, eternal damnation. Feng Cantillon was shocked and exclaimed, "Ha ha ha ha." On the other side, Yen Zue could not help but burst into laughter when he saw that. The heavens are truly on my side. To think that it would be eternal damnation. Desolate Marshal will definitely die today. Is that peerless divine power that powerful? Fairy Purple River asked. Yen Zue smiled. First, there are 10,000 heavenly tribulations in eternal damnation. Even the person undergoing the tribulation transcendence won't be able to comprehend all the heavenly tribulations that descend at the same time. That's because this peerless divine power can only be released after one comprehends all the heavenly tribulations. However, no one can comprehend all the heavenly tribulations during this short tribulation transcendence process. Fairy Purple River and the others nodded and looked at the dense tribulation runes in the distance, giving up on comprehending them. Yen Zue said, "Second, the meaning of damnation in the name of this peerless divine power means that no recovery is possible. Even if Desolate Marshal can survive it, his injuries will never recover as long as he's injured by eternal damnation." Pest. The fiends gasped. Yen Zue chuckled. Of course, if he can break through to the Grotto Heaven realm and open up his Grotto Heaven, he'll naturally be able to dispel the power of eternal damnation. Yen Zue did not continue, but everyone knew that it was impossible. Desolate Marshal was only undergoing the tribulation transcendence now. How long more would it take for him to advance to the Grotto Heaven realm? With this battered body, it was unknown if his cultivation could even advance in the future, let alone advance to the Grotto Heaven realm. As Yen Zue and the others discussed, eternal damnation descended. Looking at the dense tribulation runes above his head, the gaze of the martial Tao prime body intensified and he channeled his blood chi to its limits. Instantly, his figure seemed to have vanished. In its place was a gigantic furnace burning with raging flames. The bloodline phenomenon of the martial Tao prime body, heaven and earth furnace. Back then, before he entered the true martial realm, the power of the heaven and earth furnace could not be released completely. Therefore, he could only kill fiend cultivators at the convergence realm of the perfected one realm. But now the martial Tao prime body had advanced and created the true martial Tao body, causing his power of blood to increase exponentially. The power of his bloodline phenomenon had also increased by a huge level and had completely transformed into a peerless divine power. Since the final heavenly tribulation sent down a peerless divine power, the martial Tao prime body would use the peerless divine power he created to defend. Yen Zue was right. In the short tribulation transcendence process, there was no way he could comprehend all the heavenly tribulations. However, he could make use of the heaven and earth furnace to smelt and absorb all the 10,000 heavenly tribulations. When he was in seclusion, he could comprehend the profoundness within bit by bit. Heaven and earth will be the furnace and creation will be the process. Yin and yang will be charcoal and all living beings will be bronze. The voice of the martial Tao prime body sounded from the heaven and earth furnace. Right in front of everyone, the 10,000 heavenly tribulations surged into the heaven and earth furnace. Phew! 5 flames rose around the heaven and earth furnace. the martial spirit fire, dragon phoenix flames, tribulation fire, red lotus karmic fire and hellfire. The augmentation of the 5 flames caused the power of the heaven and earth furnace to increase exponentially. The entire furnace was burned red and almost transparent. One could vaguely see that there were thousands of tribulation runes charging everywhere within, but there was nowhere to hide. This was not only the martial Tao prime body undergoing tribulation transcendence. This was also a fight between 2 peerless divine powers. A moment later, the tribulation runes could not break free and suddenly gathered together, transforming into a scarlet beam of light. Clang! The scarlet light struck the heaven and earth furnace heavily and it shuddered. The light dissipated and the figure of the martial Tao prime body appeared as well. The 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was finally over. With the help of the heaven and earth furnace, the martial Tao prime body absorbed and refined eternal damnation almost perfectly and was only waiting to comprehend it in seclusion. On the other side, Feng Santian's situation was much more dangerous. After all, he had fought consecutively with Yan Zue and the others and was severely injured. Although he endured the baptism of the heavenly tribulations, his injuries had yet to heal and his combat strength had not recovered to its peak. He was already struggling to defend against the tribulation runes of eternal damnation. Finally, the tribulations turned into a scarlet light that slashed towards Feng Cantian. Even with his startling evil spear, Feng Cantian was still too weak to take it head-on and the spear flew from his hands. The scarlet light surged in and pierced Feng Santian's chest instantly, leaving a hole the size of a bowl. Poof! A fountain of blood gushed out. Under normal circumstances, such injuries were nothing to a perfected immortal. However, no matter how Feng Cantian channeled his essence spirit, the hole in his chest could not heal and bled endlessly. Among the 10,000 heavenly tribulations, there was the heavenly tribulation, mental demon tribulation, weapon tribulation, formation tribulation, residency tribulation, destruction tribulation, emptiness tribulation. There was a myriad of complex powers and tribulations all accumulated on Feng Santian's wound. How could it heal? This was the terror of eternal damnation. Although he managed to defend against it, he could not recover from any injuries. Chapter 2380. 2380 10th Tribulation. 2380 10th Tribulation. Brother Yen, hurry and leave. When Fairy Purple River saw that, she reminded hurriedly, even the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation can't injure this person. We're definitely not his match. If we don't leave, something might happen. That's right. I'm afraid only a Grotto Heaven expert can kill this person. Another perfected fiend said. Although the fiends had never seen a paragon who could attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation in real life, they had heard of such people in legends and ancient books before. However, this was the first time the fiends had seen a monster incarnate who was almost completely unharmed after the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. This was beyond their understanding. If he could even withstand a peerless divine power, what was the background of this person? The fiends were in no mood to fight and wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yan Zue's expression was terrible. This time round, he gathered 18 fiend armies and 1,000,000 cultivators. However, they were turned into ashes by this sect master of Tianhuang's sect who appeared out of nowhere and triggered the heavenly tribulations. Although he was indignant, he had to admit that he would most likely be killed by Desolate Marshal if he continued staying here. Yan Zue took a deep breath and grit his teeth, prepared to leave. Suddenly, his expression changed as he looked up at the distant firmaments with a bewildered expression. Could it be? A thought flashed through Yan Zue's mind and he was shocked. On the other side, when the martial Tao prime body saw that Feng Cantian was injured by the final strike of the heavenly tribulation, he could not help but reveal a worried expression and ask, Senior you? I'm fine. Feng Cantian lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole in his chest, seemingly unconcerned. Back when he entered the perfected One realm and underwent tribulation transcendence, he had only undergone the 8 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Now that he was making use of the opportunity of the martial Tao prime body's tribulation transcendence to experience the legendary 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation personally, it was a huge boost to his Dharmic Tao. Due to the overwhelming number of tribulations in eternal damnation, he could not comprehend everything completely. However, with the opportunity of the Tribulation transcendence this time round, he could personally sense the might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. His comprehension of the Tao of thunder became even more thorough. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, Feng Cantion was plotted against when he was breaking through to the Grotto Heaven realm, causing his breakthrough to fail and his Tao fruit to be crippled. In his consciousness, the Tao fruit had already vanished and in its place was a sea of lightning. It was already extremely difficult to break through to the Grotto Heaven realm. He had failed once and lost his Tao fruit. It was even more difficult for him to break through to the Grotto Heaven realm with this sea of lightning. It could be said that if he cultivated normally, it would be almost impossible for him to step into the Grotto Heaven realm. However, after enduring the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation this time round, his comprehension of the Dharmic Tao of thunder deepened and he could see the barrier of the Grotto Heaven realm once more. The might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. Feng Cantion murmured softly. Although his body was damaged and the bloodied hole in his chest was shocking, the sea of lightning in his consciousness rumbled with a shocking power. When the martial Tao prime body saw that, he nodded to himself. Not only did his true martial Tao body rise to another level in this tribulation transcendence, Feng Cantion had clearly benefited immensely as well. Everything was practically perfect. After the baptism of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, the tripod Hell Suppression tripod had already advanced to the peak of the perfected one realm and its aura was powerful. Right then, another terrifying might descended from the skies. Even Yen Beichen and the others beneath the Hell Suppression tripod felt their hearts skip a beat. What's going on? Hasn't the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation already ended? Why haven't the tribulation clouds in the skies dispersed? Could the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation not be the end point? That's impossible. As though it sensed danger, the Hell Suppression tripod trembled slightly. The 4 sacred souls were also warning the martial Tao prime body repeatedly. Even Feng Cantion, who was comprehending the Dharmic Tao, was jolted awake by the might. He looked up with a grim expression and gripped the startling evil spear once more. Desolate Marshal, watch out. There's a change in the world. Feng Cantion reminded. The martial Tao prime body narrowed his eyes slightly and was on guard when he sensed the terrifying might of the tribulation clouds above. The heavenly tribulation was not over yet. There was a 10th tribulation above the 9 of 9. The martial Tao prime body had a feeling that there was a high chance the 10th tribulation was triggered due to the anomaly of the true martial Tao body. His existence was a variable. The existence of the 10th tribulation was to kill variables. The martial Tao prime body said in a deep voice, "Senior, you're injured. Go hide under the Hell Suppression tripod first." "It's fine, this injury is nothing." Feng Cantion gripped the startling evil spear tightly and shouted with a torrential aura, "Let's see what's the deal with this 10th tribulation." Boom! A loud bang sounded from the tribulation clouds. There were no tribulations or sea of lightning. There was only a phantom that descended. It was condensed from thunder and surrounded by resplendent lightning. Although it was only a thunder phantom, it was lifelike. It was a black-robed woman with peerless features and a cold aura. Her black hair fell like flowing water and stopped at her waist. The woman held something that resembled a turtle shell in her left hand and a horsetail whip with a jade handle and white threads in her right. It looked extremely familiar. The martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. The primordial unity horsetail whip. Dharmic treasures in the form of horsetail whips looked similar and there were not much differences. However, the horsetail whip before him was identical to the primordial unity horsetail whip that the Green Lotus True Body obtained. Be it in terms of size, length or the detailed patterns on the horsetail whip's handle, they were exactly the same. At the same time, the Green Lotus True Body sensed something and circulated the spirit consonance art, watching the woman in midair through the eyes of the martial Tao prime body. Boom! Another thunderclap sounded from the tribulation clouds. Another woman appeared in midair. The woman's appearance was not inferior to the former. The woman's skin was smooth and her brows were like wisps of smoke. Her clothes were white as snow and accentuated her figure perfectly. Just by standing there motionlessly, she exuded an indescribable charm that made one admire her uncontrollably. In midair, the woman wielded an autumn water sword. The moment she appeared, she attracted countless gazes. Far away, the fiends revealed infatuated expressions and knelt on the ground one after another when they saw the woman. It was as though no one would hesitate if the woman gave the order for the fiends to commit suicide on the spot. Only Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River could compose themselves and stabilize their Dao hearts. Two women were conjured from the two thunder phantoms. One was cold and dignified while the other was beautiful and charming. Each of them had their own merits and were peerless. For some unknown reason, when he saw the latter woman, the martial Dao prime body could not help but recall an old friend. The old friend's aura was rather similar to the white-robed woman that appeared later on. She was innately charming and could topple the world. Although they were two women, the martial Dao prime body did not dare to be careless. That was because the auras released by the two women were way too terrifying. Even against Emperor Bo Soon, the martial Dao prime body did not feel such ubiquitous and unstoppable pressure. These two women were even more terrifying than the peerless divine power, eternal damnation. Chapter 2381. 2381 Will of the Heavens. 2381 Will of the Heavens. The black-robed woman raised the horsetail whip in her hands gently and 3,000 threads gathered, piercing towards the martial Dao prime body like a spear. That single attack released an extremely ferocious power that seemed unshakable. The Green Lotus true body was far away in Heaven and Earth Academy. When he saw that through the eyes of the martial Dao prime body, he sensed something else. The way the black-robed woman waved her horsetail whip looked simple. However, it seemed to contain a deep secret and was extremely exquisite. Naturally, the martial Dao prime body was fearless against the attack of the black-robed woman. Without dodging or avoiding, he strode forward and punched. Boom! The 3,000 threads collided with the fist of the martial Dao prime body with a loud bang. The martial Dao prime body shuddered. A trickle of blood appeared on his fist. The spear formed by the 3,000 threads could actually tear through the flesh of the true martial Dao body and make him bleed. However, the black-robed woman did not take a single step back after clashing head-on with him. That seemingly slender and delicate body seemed to be hiding endless power. All right. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly. Let's see how many more punches you can take. Just as he was about to advance, he recalled something and his heart skipped a beat. The combat strength of this black-robed woman was so terrifying that she was not weaker than him. The white-robed woman with the sword must not be weak either. That way, the severely injured Feng Cantillon would definitely not be a match for the white-robed woman. At the same time, Feng Cantillon and the white-robed woman had already exchanged blows. The white-robed woman waved her sword and created sword shadows. Her graceful figure fluttered in the sword shadows in a charming manner. Against that sword technique, Feng Cantillon felt like he had no way of attacking. It seemed as though he would break through the beautiful intent before him if he attacked. Watch out! Without hesitation, Feng Cantillon raised his startling evil spear instinctively. A sword beam lit up for a brief moment. Clang! The startling evil spear seemed to have collided with the sword. Immediately after, more than 10 wounds appeared on Feng Cantillon's body and blood gushed out like a fountain. Feng Cantillon spat out a mouthful of blood and fell backwards, unable to hold on any longer. Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body appeared and punched the side of the white-robed woman's sword. With the momentum of the power, he swerved and arrived beside the Hell Suppression tripod, sending Feng Cantillon beneath it. Feng Cantillon no longer had the strength to fight given his situation. If not for the appearance of the martial Dao prime body, the white-robed woman's second sword strike might have taken Feng Cantillon's life. Watch out! Feng Cantillon knew that he could not help much and could only remind. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly and turned to charge towards the two women. Boom! The martial Dao prime body charged towards the black-robed woman and punched out. Like a volcano spewing, the world collapsed and an incomparably domineering power burst forth. The black-robed woman had an indifferent expression and continued raising her horsetail whip. However, this time round, the 3,000 threads became extremely gentle and coiled around the figure of the martial Dao prime body continuously. Before he could touch the black-robed woman, the ferocious power of that punch was completely dissipated. In the hands of the black-robed woman, The primordial Unity Horsetail Whip was a combination of toughness and gentleness. It was fluid, and although every attack seemed ordinary, they contained endless Dharmic Dao. Each time the distance between them decreased, the black-robed woman would take light steps and a mysterious pattern that resembled a chessboard would appear beneath her feet. With every step the black-robed woman took, she would step in a special direction and distance herself instantly, using her horsetail whip to whip the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body attacked consecutively but could not close in. On the contrary, streaks of blood appeared on his body from the horsetail whip. On the other side, the white-robed woman wielded a long sword and posed a huge threat to the martial Dao prime body as well. As time passed by, the martial Dao prime body was gradually disadvantaged against the encirclement of the two women. Right then, the tribulation clouds changed and another phantom appeared. The phantom was not human but an old ape that was 30 feet tall. Its arms were extremely long and almost hung down between its knees. Although its beard was white, its eyes surged with a strange blood glint. Monkey! The martial Dao prime body's heart skipped a beat when he saw the old ape. The old ape seemed to have a similar bloodline to Monkey, and belonged to a separate lineage of the ape race. After the old ape appeared, he wielded a shimmering golden rod as well. Roar! The old ape roared at the martial Dao prime body and his blood chi burst forth. Wielding his rod, he swept towards the latter. Bang! The martial Dao prime body punched out and clashed head-on. The fist and rod collided but the martial Dao prime body did not budge. Instead, the old ape retreated half a step. Ow! Ow! The old ape was enraged and the blood glint in his eyes intensified. As though he was in a berserk state, he raised his rod and smashed down once more. The martial Dao prime body still threw a punch. Bang! This time round, both parties did not budge but the martial Dao prime body shuddered. Indeed, the old ape's strength had increased tremendously after he went berserk. The old ape roared again and struck once more. Bang! This time round, the martial Dao prime body retreated consecutively with a look of shock in his eyes. Every single attack of the old ape was fiercer and more terrifying than the previous. Even he could not withstand it. Roar! The old ape attacked once more and his rod tore through the air. It was too fast. The martial Dao prime body felt a phantom flash before him and raised his arms instinctively. Bang! An unimaginable divine power collided heavily against his arms and sent him flying. He fell dozens of feet away and slid down, creating a deep ravine on the ground. A sharp pain came from the arms of the martial Dao prime body. The old ape's rod smashed his arms into a bloody mess and even revealed the bones within. If not for the fact that he had attained lesser mastery of the true martial Dao body, and his bones were already etched with the martial Dao technique, that rod would have snapped his arms. The tribulation clouds changed once more. Two more phantoms appeared. After one of them descended, the skies darkened. The location of the figure was shrouded by darkness and nothing could be seen clearly. There was only a hazy shadow. The other figure had golden hair, blue eyes and was tall. His body shone with a bedazzling golden light and golden blood chi rose from his body. He was incomparably handsome. One of the two figures seemed to represent darkness and the other represented light. Who are those people? Why are there so many of them all of a sudden? Beneath the Hell Suppression tripod, Gu Tongyu had a worried expression. Those phantoms were formed from the lightning of the heavenly tribulation and were not true bodies. Even so, the combat strength released by the phantoms was way too terrifying. The sect master of Tianhuang's sect, a monster incarnate whose combat strength was heaven-defying and could even defend against peerless divine powers, was forced to his current state by these phantoms. Brother Yen, what's going on? Fairy Purple River and the others asked. Any one of those phantoms could make all the fiends shudder in fear. Furthermore, there were now 5 of them. The entire world seemed to be unable to withstand the appearance of 5 phantoms at the same time and trembled slightly. Yen Zue finally revealed a smile. I don't know who those people are either. I only know one thing. The heavens want to destroy him. This is the will of the heavens. The will of the heavens can't be disobeyed. Chapter 2382. 2382 Fight between Dharmic Daos. 2382 Fight between Dharmic Daos. The heartland of the Fiend domain. Apart from Black and Earth-grade sects that fought everywhere for resources and territories, there were also some Heaven-grade sects and factions lingering in this area. At the level of Heaven-grade sects, there would definitely be Grotto Heaven experts presiding over the sect. Those were Fiend Kings. This area of Zephyr Thunder Palace was under the jurisdiction of Black Fiend sect. Unlike the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain, generally speaking, no matter how many sects and factions below fought one another, even if one of them was destroyed, Black Fiend sect would not interfere. As the sect master of Black Fiend sect and a Fiend King, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had seen too many sects and factions rise and fall and was long used to it. In his opinion, the only way to nurture true paragons for his use was through continuous killing and conquest. As long as those sects and factions were still under his lead, he would not appear. However, this day, on a whim, he sensed a strange energy fluctuation in the distance that was extremely unusual. Zhong Yan. Suddenly, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven spoke. Here. Before long, a middle-aged man in black armor walked over from beneath the hall with a cold expression. He knelt in front of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. What happened over there? The spirit consciousness of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven moved and a map of the heartland of the Fiend domain appeared in midair as he pointed to an area. That's the location of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Zhong Yan said deeply, in the past few days, Yen Zue and the others have gathered the 18 Fiend armies and 1,000,000 Fiend cultivators to attack Zephyr Thunder Palace. It's not down yet. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven frowned. I'm not sure. Zhong Yan said, I heard that Feng Cantion has some tricks up his sleeves. He was once the supreme perfected immortal of the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain, and is not weaker than Yen Zue. However, with the help of Fairy Purple River and the others, it shouldn't be a problem for Yen Zue to destroy Zephyr Thunder Palace. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven shook his head gently. Something's not right. An extremely powerful energy fluctuation suddenly appeared over there. Something might have happened. Zhong Yan asked. It's possible. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven nodded and paused for a moment before continuing. It's also possible that Feng Cantion entered the Grotto Heaven realm. No matter who it is, congratulations, Sect Master. You've gained another Fiend King and capable general under your lead. Zhong Yan congratulated hurriedly. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven threw out a badge. Take my badge and go take a look. No matter who it is that entered the Grotto Heaven realm, have them come and meet me. Understood. Zhong Yan bowed and retreated. At the same time, in another Heaven-grade faction, Yellow Springs Villa, a man who was watering and weeding the medicinal field sensed something and exclaimed softly, looking in the direction of Zephyr Thunder Palace. What's going on? Why is there such a huge commotion? The man murmured softly in deep thought. God Fiend Ridge. A golden-haired blue-eyed man sat in a resplendent palace, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the man opened his eyes and soared into the air, looking into the distance with a bewildered expression. Wind Fiend Sect. An evil wind blew and a figure suddenly appeared, looking at the distant horizon with a playful expression. Zephyr Thunder Palace. The 5 Thunder Phantoms of different races joined forces to attack the Martial Dao Prime Body. Although the Martial Dao Prime Body could not injure the 5 Thunder Phantoms single-handedly, the 5 of them could not injure his foundation as well even when they joined forces. The Martial Dao Prime Body looked a little wretched and was covered in injuries. However, most of them were superficial wounds. As long as the combat stopped, they would recover before long. Each of the 5 Thunder Phantoms had different methods and Dharmic Daos. The black-robed woman's Dharmic Dao was mysterious and was the most troublesome to deal with for the Martial Dao Prime Body. Each time the Martial Dao Prime Body attacked, the black-robed woman seemed to have expected it and could determine his intentions and even retaliate in a preemptive manner through her attacks and trajectory. Furthermore, the black-robed woman's movement technique was agile. The Martial Dao Prime Body attacked repeatedly but to no avail. Of course, the Martial Dao Prime Body relied on his spirit perception, and the black-robed woman could not cause any fatal damage to him either. The white-robed woman's Dharmic Dao leaned towards the spirit. Her figure was graceful and charming. The Dao heart of the Martial Dao Prime Body was firm as a rock and unshakable. The white-robed woman's Dharmic Dao had the least impact and threat on him. As for the old ape, he was extremely strong and even the martial Dao prime body could not withstand it. The two people who appeared later on also had strong Dharmic Daos and heaven-defying combat strength. Most of the injuries on the martial Dao prime body were left behind by the old ape and the two people behind him. Right then, two figures appeared from the tribulation clouds once more. One of them was a man who wore snow-white robes and wielded a long sword. He had a cold expression and shifted his gaze towards the martial Dao prime body without any emotions in his eyes. Swoosh! The white-robed man attacked. A sword beam suddenly lit up and retracted. The martial Dao prime body had never seen such a terrifying sword technique. That sword strike fused speed and killing power to its limits. It was perfect and incomparably stunning. The martial Dao prime body was entangled by the previous 5 Thunder Phantoms and was already at his limits. He could not defend against that sword at all. Flashes of blood spewed out. In a flash, the martial Dao prime body retreated and avoided fatal damage. However, his abdomen was still pierced by the sword, leaving a bloody hole. At the same time, the Green Lotus True Body was shocked when he saw that sword. Previously, he saw a tattered piece of white paper in the secret pavilion of the Academy with the word Sword Classic written on it. The Green Lotus True Body had long memorized the Sutra of the Sword Classic. However, because it was incomplete, he could not comprehend the contents at all. But now, when he saw the white-robed man's attack, the Green Lotus True Body seemed to have an understanding. Suddenly, he felt that he understood a little about the initially obscure and incomplete Sutra of the Sword Classic. After the white-robed man, another figure appeared. Stepping on the galaxies, he waved his hand and the stars shifted. It was already the limit for the martial Dao prime body to fight 1 against 5. The white-robed sword cultivator that appeared almost pushed him to the brink of death. Coupled with this phantom that arrived with the stars, the martial Dao prime body would not be able to escape death. Sensing the danger of the martial Dao prime body, the Hell Suppression tripod shuddered and the 4 sacred souls left the tripod on their own, letting out a roar. Roar! Roar! Screech! Ow! The 4 sacred souls at the peak of the perfected One realm surrounded the Star Phantom at the back and released ferocious attacks. As for the Star Phantom, with a single wave of his hand, a sea of stars surged and countless galaxies flowed. He fought against the 4 sacred souls with ease and was not disadvantaged. Poof, poof, poof. With the addition of the white-robed sword cultivator, the martial Dao prime body was forced to retreat in defeat against the encirclement of 6 phantoms and countless wounds appeared on his body as blood gushed out. Before long, the body of the martial Dao prime body was extremely battered, leaving only a skeleton with some flesh stuck on it. It was almost impossible to see his human form. In reality, although the martial Dao prime body seemed like he was in an extremely terrible state, the situation was not completely irreversible. Although the 6 phantoms joined forces and severely injured the martial Dao prime body, they could not sever his bones. Because he had attained lesser mastery of the true martial Dao body, the martial Dao technique was already imprinted on his bones. Although the combat strength of the 6 phantoms was strong and their Dharmic Daos were mysterious, they could not sever the martial Dao or surpass it. This no longer seemed like Tribulation transcendence, but a fight between Dharmic Daos. Chapter 2383. 2383 Hell's Gate. 2383 Hell's Gate. Is that person truly only a perfected fiend? Even this can't kill him? When the fiends saw that, their hearts skipped a beat as they exchanged shocked glances. Yen Zue said in a deep voice, "That person is already severely injured. Even if he can survive this calamity, he'll definitely die if we seize the opportunity to attack." Beneath the Hell Suppression tripod, Yen Beichen, Ming Zhan and the others could only watch helplessly. "Master won't just die here, right?" Heavenly Wolf was unsure as well and muttered. With a melancholic expression, Gu Tongyu sighed gently. "Right now, I'm afraid we can only pray that there won't be any more Thunder Phantom." Under the Hell Suppression tripod, the Thunder Emperor, Feng Cantion, assumed a lotus position and closed his eyes, as though he had fallen into a mysterious state. In his consciousness, the surging sea of lightning shrank continuously. His strength was accumulating continuously as well, as though he was consolidating power for some earth-shaking commotion. On the battlefield, the martial Dao prime body had nowhere to retreat against the encirclement of the 6 thunder phantoms. Ah! Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body roared into the skies and channeled his essence spirit. He conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands, and a gigantic door shrouded in black chi appeared behind him. The door was like a dark abyss that was bottomless. At the same time, it was like the mouth of a gigantic beast that could devour everything. This was a Dharmic Dao that was evolved by the martial Dao prime body after he obtained the Hell Suppression tripod and controlled Avicii, Hell's Gate. The black chi that surged around the Hell's Gate was the Avicii Fiend chi that could corrode everything and taint all living beings. All of you come in! The martial Dao prime body hollered and propped up the Hell's Gate, enveloping the 6 thunder phantoms. Fiend chi surged and covered the skies. The Hell's Gate led to Avicii. The martial Dao prime body wanted to suppress the 6 thunder phantoms in Avicii. A powerful suction force burst forth from the Hell's Gate and pulled the 6 thunder phantoms in. As though they sensed danger, they hurriedly released various Dharmic Daos and sword techniques to fight against the Avicii Fiend chi, wanting to break free from the Hell's Gate. Buzz! Buzz! Bang! Bang! The Hell's Gate shook violently with a loud bang. The first to break free from the Hell's Gate was the black-robed woman. The turtle shell in her hands shone with rays of light, and mysterious runes appeared, as though they could see through the heavenly secrets and divine all living beings. At the same time, she released that mysterious footwork once more. With a single step, a square pattern appeared beneath her feet, as though it was all-encompassing and contained the secrets of heaven and earth. Relying on the turtle shell and mysterious footwork in her hands, the black-robed woman broke free from the Hell's Gate. Even so, she suffered a huge loss this time round, and her phantom faded significantly, turning almost transparent. The second to charge out was the white-robed sword cultivator, who appeared last. A single slash of his sword tore through the Avicii Fiend chi and created a clear sword scar on the Hell's Gate. Although the white-robed sword cultivator escaped, he was still tainted by a lot of Avicii Fiend chi. After he purged the Fiend chi completely, the phantom faded as well, as though it had expended a lot of energy. After a crack appeared on the Hell's Gate by the white-robed sword cultivator, the remaining 4 people could no longer be trapped. The old ape smashed down with his rod, creating a huge pit in the Hell's Gate that was filled with spiderweb-like cracks that extended continuously. It was on the brink of collapse. The old ape charged out. Immediately after were the 2 men that represented darkness and light. The white-robed woman came last. Although the 6 thunder phantoms escaped, they nearly died inside. Furthermore, they suffered immense losses this time round, and most of their auras were depleted. They were no longer the same as before. The reason why the Hell's Gate could release such a powerful might and devour the 6 thunder phantoms was because this Dharmic Dao already contained a trace of a grotto heaven's power. The martial Dao prime body had just entered the true martial realm and should not have come into contact with that power. However, his martial Dao furnace had smelted too many Dharmic Daos and divine powers. Thereafter, he obtained the Hell Suppression tripod and controlled Avicii. He was even trapped in Greater Avicii for 1,000 years and tortured. That was the reason why he could imitate an existence similar to a grotto heaven. To be precise, the martial Dao prime body had yet to comprehend the power of the grotto heaven realm. The Hell's Gate was merely a Dharmic Dao that he had evolved by imitating Avicii. It merely took on the form of a grotto heaven but did not have the intent of a grotto heaven. Even so, the martial Dao prime body nearly killed the 6 thunder phantoms conjured by the heavenly tribulation. Be it the 6 thunder phantoms or the martial Dao prime body, they had already reached their limits in this battle. On the other side, the outcome of the battle between the Star Phantom and the 4 sacred souls was still indeterminate. Right then, the tribulation clouds appeared once more. Another thunder phantom descended. Beneath the Hell Suppression tripod, Yan Beichen, Ming Zhan and the others felt their hearts sink. The situation earlier on was still balanced, and the martial Dao prime body at least had a chance of fighting. But now, the arrival of yet another thunder phantom would break that balance completely. There was a high chance that this final phantom would end the martial Dao prime body. It was a monk wearing an ancient kasaya and holding a bronze square tripod in his hands. It was extremely similar in size to the Hell Suppression tripod. However, there were no patterns of the 4 sacred souls on the 4 walls of the tripod. Others might not be able to tell what it was, But when the martial Dao Prime body saw the bronze square tripod, he recognized it right away. It was the Hell Suppression tripod. Or rather, it was the initial appearance of the Hell Suppression tripod. If the bronze tripod was the Hell Suppression tripod, the identity of the monk was obvious. It was the Infinite Great Emperor. The martial Dao Prime body had never seen the Infinite Great Emperor before. He had never expected that he would be able to see the true appearance of the Infinite Great Emperor one day. Although the two true bodies were millions of kilometers apart, they were shocked the moment they saw the monk. Su Zimo had never expected this powerful Great Emperor, who was said to suppress countless evil, and was even willing to transform into a purgatory to look like this. The monk had a warm gaze and looked extremely amiable. After the monk descended with the bronze square tripod, he was slightly stunned when he saw the Hell Suppression tripod at the side. Thereafter, he looked at the martial Dao Prime body with a hint of realization in his eyes. "Let's end it." The monk smiled gently and bowed slightly to the 7 thunder phantoms not far away, saying softly. Immediately after, the monk's body exploded and released an incomparably terrifying power that swept in all directions, pulling all 7 figures in. There was no anger, indignance, hatred or surprise on the faces of the 7 phantoms. On the contrary, the 7 phantoms looked at the martial Dao Prime body with a hint of admiration and relief. Immediately after, the 7 phantoms faded and dissipated into the world. The power did not weaken and surged into the clouds, dissipating the tribulation clouds in the skies. Everything returned to normalcy and the world regained peace. The scene earlier on seemed surreal, as though it was an illusion. The martial Dao Prime body stood on the spot in silence. A long time later, he gradually snapped out of his stupor and heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 2384. 2384 There's no future for you. 2384 There's no future for you. Although the heavenly tribulation was over, this battle was not over yet. Watch out! When Yen Beichen and the others saw the situation behind the martial Dao Prime body, their expressions changed as they warned hurriedly. Shameless! Gu Tongyu cursed. These people are trying to take advantage of the situation. Yen Zue and Fairy Purple River brought the fiends and made a comeback, charging towards the martial Dao Prime body. In the blink of an eye, they arrived before him. Even without the reminder of Yen Beichen and the others, the spirit perception of the martial Dao Prime body had long sensed hostility. Ooh! The sound of a sharp weapon tearing through the air was ear-piercing. The martial Dao Prime body did not turn around and punched in reverse. After the 10th tribulation, there was not much flesh left on his fist, it was almost all bones. However, that punch still possessed an unstoppable might that could destroy the world. Clang! When the sharp weapon collided with the fist of the martial Dao Prime body, the sound of metal clashing echoed and sparks flew. It was a weapon similar to a spear. However, there were sharp hooks at the tip of the spear. This was Yen Zue's pure yang spirit treasure, heart-piercing hook. It was said that the heart-piercing hook was a replica of the weapon of King Yama of Hell. By piercing it into the chest, it could conveniently draw out the heart, causing the blood chi of the cultivator to deteriorate, and it would be difficult for cultivators struck by it to recover. A look of surprise flashed through the depths of Yen Zue's eyes. He had not expected that the martial Dao Prime body would be able to defend against his pure yang spirit treasure despite not having any flesh left. Yen Zue did not know at all that the foundation of the true martial Dao body was his Dao bones. Even the 10th tribulation could not sever his Dao bones. Fairy Purple River hollered softly. Desolate Martial's tribulation transcendence has just ended and he's at his weakest. He has already used up all his methods. Everyone, let's join forces and not give him a chance to catch his breath. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Boom, boom, boom. As Yen Zue attacked, the sentient Dharmic treasures, divine powers and secret skills of the fiends descended one after another and attacked the martial Dao Prime body. You guys think that you can lay your hands on me? The martial Dao Prime body surveyed his surroundings and his eyes were deep. 2 balls of flames burned in his eyes but his silver mask was cold. Suddenly, under the gazes of the martial Dao Prime body, a heat wave spread from the bodies of the fiends. Immediately after, Scarlet flames burst forth from the bodies of the fiends and engulfed their bodies instantly, creating a raging fire. The Red Lotus Comic Fire burned karma. In the blink of an eye, many perfected fiends were burned to the point where their flesh split open and red lotus flowers appeared on their skin in a strangely beautiful manner. Oh. The fiends let out tragic cries. The higher the cultivation realm of a cultivator, the deeper the karma they would be tainted and the stronger the karmic flames that would burn. In that short period of time, dozens of perfected fiends were burned to death by the karmic flames and died on the spot. The divine powers and secret skills released by the fiends that were burned by the karmic flames dissipated before they could descend. When the sentient Dharmic treasures struck the martial Dao prime body, they did not have much strength left and bounced off, scattering on the ground. Cultivation was a heaven-defying act. No matter who it was, who wouldn't be tainted by karma if they could cultivate to this point? Whose hands wouldn't be stained with countless blood? Fairy Purple River had harmed countless women and children in order to cultivate her evil cultivation techniques. She was even more sinful and was entangled by negative karma. The Red Lotus Karmic Fire dealt the greatest damage to her. Desolate Marshal! Desolate Marshal! Fairy Purple River shrieked hysterically. As though she had gone mad, she tore at her clothes continuously, wanting to extinguish the flames on her body. However, the karmic flames on her body intensified and surged into the skies, forming a gigantic pillar of flames. Karmic flames burned on Yen Xue's body as well. However, they did not grow stronger after he suppressed them. Break! Two beams of light flowed out from Yen Xue's yin-yang eyes. One was black and the other was white. Instantly, they covered his body and extinguished the karmic flames completely. Yen Xue was the supreme perfected fiend after all, and a mere karmic flame was not a threat to him. I'll fight you to the death. On the other side, Fairy Purple River suddenly let out a tragic roar. Surrounded by the karmic flames, she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. At the same time, she released her secret skill and purple-red blood burst forth from her body with an incomparably nauseating stench. Buzz! Buzz! The purple-red blood splashed on the karmic flames and let out a sound as green smoke billowed. The karmic flames were extinguished rapidly. In the green smoke, Fairy Purple River's hair was disheveled and her clothes were tattered. She seemed to have aged instantly and was in her twilight years. Her face was filled with wrinkles like an old lady and there was no hint of youth or beauty left. Fairy Purple River glared at the martial Dao prime body hatefully and grit her teeth. Desolate Marshal, I'll remember you for destroying my cultivation. In the future, I'll definitely have you return it tenfold. Before Fairy Purple River could finish, the martial Dao prime body shook his head gently and interrupted her, saying indifferently, "Don't think too much. There's no future for you." The moment he said that, the aura of the martial Dao prime body changed drastically and his gaze turned sinister. Phew! Suddenly, a ball of black flames appeared beneath the feet of the martial Dao prime body. A sinister wind blew and the black flames spread rapidly in all directions, sweeping in all directions. From afar, it formed a gigantic black fire lotus. Instantly, Yen Xue, Fairy Purple River and the remaining fiends were enveloped. The black flames distorted the surrounding space and the fiends tried to release teleportation but to no avail, they could not escape. Hellfire! The flames did not feel scorching at all. Instead, they were sinister and cold, containing the painful will of millions of living beings that no one could withstand. The fiends were already severely injured by the karmic flames. Now that they were engulfed by hellfire, they could no longer withstand it. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 perfected fiends were burned into black ashes and their essence spirits were destroyed. In less than 10 breaths, the remaining perfected fiends would be buried here. Fairy Purple River lost the essence blood that she had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years in order to extinguish the karmic flames. Now that she was faced with the hellfire, she was no longer able to resist and was reduced to ashes as well, dead. Her mystic Yin mother-child banner was completely crippled after being burned by the karmic flames and hellfire. Countless phantoms of children and women broke free from the banner. However, this time round, the faces of the children and women were no longer menacing or filled with hatred. Instead, they were filled with the joy of freedom. In the raging flames, countless women carried their children and bowed deeply in the direction of the martial Dao prime body with endless gratitude on their faces. If not for the two flames, Fairy Purple River would not have died and all of them would have been enslaved by her forever. Without their own consciousness, they would have done evil everywhere. But now that Fairy Purple River was dead and the Mystic Een Mother-Child banner was destroyed, the children and women were finally free. Countless mothers and children were reunited and would head to the netherworld to enter reincarnation. Amitabha. When Ming-Zhan saw that, he chanted the Buddhist proclamation softly and chanted the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra to purify the vengeful spirits and help them free themselves. Chapter 2385. 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? Yen Zue was helpless when he saw Fairy Purple River die. He could barely fend for himself against the impact of hellfire. Splash! The sound of blood chi rumbling could be heard from Yen Zue's body as a tsunami surged. However, he could not suppress the impact of the hellfire with his blood chi alone. Yen Zue endured the pain and torture in his body and channeled his blood chi to its limits. Behind him, a tall figure with a 9 crown on his head appeared. He wore a wide-sleeved robe and sat upright, wielding a weapon that was extremely similar to the heart-piercing hook. Beside him was a gigantic blood-stained guillotine. After the phantom descended, it was filled with a sinister and terrifying aura. Although it was only sitting there, it exuded a supreme might. This was Yen Zue's bloodline phenomenon, the legendary King Yama of Hell. The moment the Yama phantom descended, the skies darkened and the hellfire in Yen Zue's body was completely suppressed. It flickered and looked like it was about to extinguish. With the help of his bloodline phenomenon, Yen Zue's aura surged as he shouted, "Desolate Marshal, your combat strength might be superior to mine. However, you must be dreaming if you think that you can kill a supreme perfected fiend." "Is that so?" The Martial Dao Prime Body replied casually. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Swish! An endless stream of heaven and earth essence chi surged towards his true Martial Dao body as though it was corporeal. Mysterious runes shone on his Dao body as his flesh regrew rapidly. In just a few breaths, the flesh of the Martial Dao Prime Body had already recovered and he changed into a brand new purple robe. Yen Zue's expression changed. He suddenly realized that Desolate Marshal might not have become much weaker after the Tribulation transcendence. Instead, he might have become even stronger. Even the legendary non-existent 10th Tribulation could not severely injure this person's foundation. The bloodline of the Martial Dao Prime Body circulated and was pushed to its limits instantly. When he underwent the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he had already released his bloodline phenomenon, the Heaven and Earth Furnace. The interval between them was too short and he could not release it again. Behind the Martial Dao Prime Body, a gigantic living being rose slowly. It was bathed in scorching red lava and resembled a dragon and phoenix. It had a dragon's head and phoenix's tail and the claws beneath it were menacing and sharp, lifelike. On the back of the living being was a pair of wings that were scarlet like flames. They flapped gently and were filled with a terrifying aura. The living being looked down at Yen Zue with a cold gaze, as though it was looking at an ant. For some unknown reason, Yen Zue felt a fear that came from the depths of his soul, and even his bloodline gradually calmed down. This is... A legend flashed through Yen Zue's mind and his expression changed as he exclaimed, "Taboo Dragon Phoenix." The bloodline phenomenon was the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. After the Martial Dao Prime Body smelted the Dragon Phoenix true body, he inherited the Dragon Phoenix bloodline as well and had long mastered the bloodline phenomenon. However, he had an even stronger bloodline phenomenon like the Heaven and Earth Furnace and had almost never used the Dragon Phoenix phenomenon. Now, against Yen Zue's bloodline phenomenon, the Martial Dao Prime Body summoned the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. Even against the legendary King Yama of Hell, the Dragon Phoenix Taboo was not disadvantaged in terms of aura and might. On the contrary, Yen Zue's blood chi was suppressed. Since his bloodline had calmed down, the bloodline phenomenon behind Yen Zue swayed slightly and showed signs of dissipating. Yen Zue jolted awake and realized that he could not show weakness at this moment. Otherwise, he would suffer a crushing defeat. Just as he was about to activate his bloodline and prepare to fight with all his might, the Taboo Dragon Phoenix behind the Martial Dao Prime Body roared and charged over. The Dragon Phoenix true body charged towards the Yama phenomenon. The Yama phenomenon did not show any weakness either. Waving the heart-piercing hook with one hand, he raised his gigantic guillotine with the other and fought against the taboo dragon phoenix. Poof, poof, poof. Although it was only a fight between two bloodline phenomenons, it was earth-shaking and was not weaker than the commotion of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation earlier on. Countless scales on the taboo dragon phoenix's body were peeled by the heart-piercing hook and bone-deep wounds were slashed by the guillotine, dripping with blood. The situation of the Yama phantom was even worse. It was almost torn apart by the taboo dragon phoenix and every single wound burned with the dragon phoenix flames that could not be extinguished. In a flash, the martial Dao prime body strode forward and punched Yen Zue. Yen Zue spread his arms as well and released dozens of punches instantly, roaring, "Yama Fiend Fist!" Bang! Bang! The martial Dao prime body did not dodge or avoid and threw out 2 punches in succession. They were majestic and shattered the force of Yen Zue's fist with ease. No matter what divine powers or secret skills Yen Zue released, the martial Dao prime body punched through everything. He was overwhelming everything with brute force. Yen Zue gripped the heart-piercing hook tightly with both hands and stabbed towards the fist of the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, he released his visual technique. 2 beams of light, one black and one white, burst forth from his eyes and spun towards the martial Dao prime body, as though they wanted to engulf him. 2 flames burst forth from the eyes of the martial Dao prime body. Phew! The 2 flames landed on the black and white beams of light and burned furiously. Before he attained greater mastery of the true martial Dao body, the martial Dao technique was not fused into his eyes. Therefore, the visual technique could not cause much damage to Yen Zue. If he had attained greater mastery of the true martial Dao body, when the visual technique was released, the 2 flames could pierce Yen Zue's eyes and burn them. Clang! The heart-piercing hook collided with the fist of the martial Dao prime body. Yen Zue shuddered and felt an unstoppable power surge into his body through the heart-piercing hook. Against that shocking divine power, his organs were shaken violently and shifted. Yen Zue spat out blood. The martial Dao prime body turned his fist into a palm grab and gripped the heart-piercing hook. Exerting strength in his palm, he snatched the heart-piercing hook and stabbed in reverse. The heart-piercing hook pierced Yen Zue's chest and heart instantly. The martial Dao prime body yanked outwards and the heart-piercing slash hooked out a grisly red beating heart. Yen Zue's blood chi deteriorated instantly. The Yama phenomenon behind him dissipated as well. The hellfire did not dissipate the entire time. Initially, Yen Zue could still suppress the impact of the hellfire with his bloodline phenomenon. But now that his blood chi was depleted and his phenomenon dissipated, he could not suppress the hellfire. One after another, black flames surged over and engulfed his body instantly. A chilling intent seeped into his bones and soul. Ah! Yen Zue shrieked tragically and felt pain that he had never endured before. "I'm the Supreme Perfected Fiend, number 1 of the Perfected Fiend ranking. I won't be defeated." Yen Zue roared hysterically and was already in a daze from the hellfire. "Who would dare claim to be supreme as long as I'm in the Fiend domain?" The martial Dao prime body looked at Yen Zue who was struggling and screaming beneath his feet and said coldly, "Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around?" When he heard that, Yen Zue was shocked and sobered up instantly. Suddenly, a sense of helplessness surged in the depths of his heart. It was almost despairing. Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around? Those words suffocated him. What a bold claim. Right then, a shout sounded from afar. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.